Hi, Jason.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
Good. Just getting all set up. It's good to see you. You got here good. We can hear you really well tonight. I think you fixed your phone.
Yeah, perhaps, maybe for now. Who knows? But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad you're here as well. There's cats.
Yes, I see cats. I say purr, cat.
I saw Let's Talk come in here a second ago and then he left. Hey, cats.
Meow.
How's it going?
Good. Oh, let me get this adjusted here. Does that sound okay?
Sounds very good. Patriot sounds really good. Like she's got hers fixed. She sounds really clear tonight.
Let's hear
So
it.
far, so good.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's excellent.
I love cats. I love all cats.
Yeah,
Um,
cats are great.
yeah, totally awesome. And look, there's our buddy Garrison.
Hello, guys. Just one second, getting set up.
That's not a problem.
I don't
We're
know,
also
Jason. I think it is a problem. I think we need to discuss this.
no, no. We're very fond of Garrison too.
Getting
Definitely.
second after cats, right?
I would say about equal.
Oh.
I'll take it. Equal to cats is a huge compliment, honestly.
Well, actually, I think she meant cats in a general term, not me.
Still, equal to that is pretty great. Cats are great animals.
Definitely.
Do you have one, Garrison?
We had one all growing up. His name was Pie Wacket, based off of an old movie my grandparents liked.
You know what's really nutty? I can't believe that. My aunt had this Siamese when I was much younger, and that's what its name was. And I was like, that's the weirdest dang name. And that cat was not really very loving. I didn't particularly care for it um, because it wasn't loving, but it had that same name. That's bizarre.
My granny explained it to me that it's from a movie that was very popular in the 1950s. They had a cat named Pie Wacket, and so people of that generation, my grandparents are in there. Let's see, she is 79 now, so almost in their 80s. Um, People of that generation, that was a very popular name for cats. Apparently, that's what she told me. I just took her word at it.
Well, that must be right. I think my aunt is actually still alive, and I want to say she's in her 90s, I think.
Howdy.
Hi, Tress.
How's it going, folks?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Finishing some homework up real quick, and while listening to this, and I'll talk occasionally, but just getting work done.
Nice. We're glad you're here.
Glad to be here as well.
Think we had a few people, Garrison, that won't be back in our forum next anymore because of us defending Nikki.
Uh, Let me guess. The first name starts with a C.
What? No, I don't think so.
No, okay, then I'm lost. Who?
Yeah.
Or you don't have to tell me. You can message me.
Yeah, I'll
It's
message you about it later. Yeah, I don't want to bring it up. But yeah, you know what I mean? That's weird. I just find it to be weird. That's all.
Well, I want to know, but you could message me
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, this is recorded. I don't really want to throw names out on a recording.
No, of course not.
So I want to be respectful of people and not start throwing names out there for it to be heard in a recording. I hope they come. I hope they're not. It's not petty like that, and that they show up and stuff. But I have a feeling that some people just can't let go of stuff and make a bigger deal out of things than they should. You know.
Well, I'm pretty sure I know at least who one of them is, and that's sad. I like that person.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, Trask says he's got to go, and I understand. He lives in Texas, so he's got to go to school. So I understand why.
I know. It's like, wait a minute, he just got here. Why is he leaving?
And then Let's Talk was in here for a short time and then left. So I don't know what's up. The room might be small tonight. I hope not. I hope more people show up, but we got good topics to go on. I know Garrison, you got good stuff, and Kat, you too. So
Hey, Colin.
Hey, Cats, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing quite well.
Are you
awesome.
back in school or what's the scoop?
Yeah, I've been back in school for like a month now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Are you a junior?
No, I'm a senior, but I really should be a junior because I skipped a grade.
Oh, well, you know what? That doesn't really surprise me.
Thank you.
Colin's one smart kid. You know he could probably skip another grade, probably.
Yeah, he could just go right to like the last year of college.
Exactly. Right, Garrison?
I agree. I agree.
I actually tested out of my civics class, so like I literally have an A in that class, and I don't have to do any more work for it. It's hilarious.
I did that for my high school government class. I tested out.
Well, we'll start with the small group we have now, and hopefully it gets bigger as we go. I'm glad we're here, and Garrison, I'm glad you're co-hosting tonight. Thank you, bro. Always appreciate you. And Colin, I love hearing the other side in the room. We do like having you here, so thank you for showing up. And we are we'll have a good time. Our motto here at the Conservative Political Forum, always for all of us to stand together, is that we, here in the Conservative Political Forum, everyone has different opinions, but we will work to find common ground. So we will always do that. And with that, I am going to give us our opening topic here. And Garrison, jump in with your opinion on this right after me first, before anybody else does, because I want to hear what you have to say about this. But the 9/11 masterminds, Khalid Shaikh Mohammed, could get a plea deal escaping the death penalty. He was one of the masterminds behind the 9/11 that killed 3,000 people. The 5 men charged with planning the attack, they could also get plea deals. All of them could. And that sounds kind of sad. So I just kind of wanted to talk about what you guys think of that, because it angers me that, these guys planned this in our country, and to have people die and stuff, and then now they might get plea deals, and the Biden administration might give them a plea deal, and they won't get the death penalty when 3,000 people died. So Garrison, you can throw your thoughts out first, and then we'll call on the other people with their hands up.
So I'm a little confused because I thought they were tried in federal court. I can't imagine a state court having grounds over them. So is that right? Were they tried in federal court?
That I don't know. The article said that he might get that they're going to get plea deals and that they will plea out of getting the death penalty.
But still
That
get
was
life. Yeah, the reason I'm confused is because I thought that there wasn't a death penalty in federal court. I may be mistaken on the specifics. Maybe there isn't some very rare cases. The death penalty is a tough issue for me because, in principle, I agree with the idea behind like an eye for an eye. But then the fiscal conservative in me, whenever I learned that it actually costs more to the government to execute someone rather than let them rot in a tiny jail cell for the rest of their life. I thought, what's really more of a punishment here? Let's just let them rot behind bars instead of spending more taxpayer dollars. And the reason it's more is because of appeals and all the legal maneuvers that end up costing the government a lot of money. So I'm kind of torn, but a good chunk of me, I'd say the majority of me, wants to say just let them rot in a little cage for the rest of their lives.
okay. I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, I just wanted to hear you guys' opinions on that. I kind of feel like those guys deserve. I mean, 3,000 people died. I mean, horrifically died. It's sad. And the conspiracies or whatever behind what happened in 9/11, I don't care about. I care about the fact that innocent people died. That angers me, no matter what. And so that's how I feel about it. But Dylan, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, of course, George W. Bush is going to get a plea deal. I mean, who could not get a plea deal if not that man? Now that's a joke. Personally, I mean, yeah, legal maneuvers, but considering what they did, I mean, what's the going rate for a single round of 5.56? Just put their bodies, just dump it in the ocean. No one's taking that. Just Osama bin Laden them, in my opinion. I wasn't actually born at the time. I was like in a generation of like a baby boom after 9/11, but still. I mean, you can make the argument that they have legal rights, but considering that they aren't American citizens, no, just put a bullet in the back of their head, put them in the ocean, and call it a day. There's no point in letting that scum live. Now, could they get a plea deal? I mean, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure they've all been detained at Guantanamo, so they've been tortured for the past 21-ish years. So, 21-ish years, I don't know what they could possibly offer in a plea deal, besides possible, like, I don't know, information, but at this point, like, if you haven't given it up after 21 years, I don't know what the hell you're doing. It'd be interesting to see 9/11 terrorists get a plea deal and the federal government not go after them, but someone like Julian Assange, who has exposed the government for war crimes, get attempted assassinations by the CIA and then to be extradited from the UK. Like, that doesn't make sense, at least to me morally, and it doesn't make sense, like, from an American perspective. Like, how can you let some of the most destructive acts go unpunished? Like, sure, 21 years in Guantanamo is a lot, but, like, they deserve to die, in my opinion. Like, they don't get mercy. They didn't have mercy on any of the women or children that died in that attack, and they certainly didn't care how it played out. So, and that's my opinion.
Thank you, Dylan. And I want to say, for those that were not born at that time, it was that day was very devastating to wake up and turn on the news and see I woke up and I don't know why I turned on the news, but I did, and the first tower was hit with an airplane. They're like, "There's a fire in the tower," and I'm like, "Whoa!" And all of a sudden, the next plane hits the other tower, and we're sitting there watching that right before our eyes. Those of us that were alive, going, "What is going on?" And for the first time in my life at that point, I had actually seen this country like more united than I'd seen it in a long time because of what happened when Bill Clinton was in office and stuff. And I was like, wow, we can come together. And it really brought me, like, it humbled me and made me feel like, okay, cool. And, so I just wanted to share that with you guys because that was just a shocking day. how shocking it was, And for those of you that didn't see it exactly, that's how it felt, and it was like wow, Cats, go ahead.
So I guess I never have understood that if a person gets sentenced to death, why 21 years later are they not dead? I mean, I understand maybe a grace period of a few years because I know that there have been people who were wrongly convicted, to give them time, to prove themselves innocent and not be killed. But like these people are clearly not in that category. And, I guess I didn't know. And then Garrison said it costs more money to keep him in jail than kill him. I mean, that doesn't really make sense. But then again, it's the government. But still, regardless of that, I just think that they don't deserve to live. They deserve to have their lives taken like the thousands of lives that they took.
Do you have an attorney response to that, Garrison, before we go to Colin?
Uh, Not particularly. I think the only thing I want to clarify is I think whenever Dylan started talking, they're being held in Guantanamo, which is a completely different situation, which makes sense. So I was thinking more they were tried in federal court versus a military type court, and a lot of the evidence gained against them is inadmissible because of the Constitution. We can talk if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just wanted to clarify my point on that. And the reason that it costs more is because of all the stupid lawyers. They get on my nerves just as much as they get on everyone else's.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Colin, thank you for being patient, my friend. Go ahead.
I just think the death penalty is immoral, and I believe, why would we give them the satisfaction of death? At this point, they probably want death. Why do we want to give them the satisfaction of that? Why don't we just let them rot for the rest of their life? They could be living another 20, 30, 40 years. Make them rot.
No, that's a good point. I mean, you have a definite good point there, Colin, and you bring a good point to that. And maybe that's what needs to happen. I mean, they want to plea out and stuff. When I read that, I was like, man, I'm going to bring this up to you guys, and I think this is a good topic about these guys because, like I said, I mean, 3,000 people killed on that day in this country, and these guys, I mean, I feel like, yeah, maybe they are suffering. I don't know how they're being treated in Guantanamo, and like you said, Colin, maybe that's punishment enough. Maybe don't let them get out ever. Make them stay in jail and suffer for the rest of their lives. But Dylan, go ahead.
Well, I mean, that's the point there. We have a very unique situation where there is beyond a shadow of a doubt that these men are absolutely and unequivocally guilty. There is no possible way for them not to be. And if they are, I have serious questions about the state of our security apparatus and whether the FBI, the CIA, NSA, and our National Reconnaissance Office, what the hell they're doing if these aren't the right people, and who the hell have we been detaining and torturing for the past 21 years? So I think the argument that, they could, have a case in court that they're insane or whatever, it's not going to hold water. They knew what they were doing. Like, the plan itself was elaborate enough, and I mean, maybe now they're insane, but I mean, anyone would be. And then the moral question is, as a country, one nation under God, God being the judge and jury of all, do we really have it within ourselves and as a republic to continue to torture these people for the remainder of their lives, or simply show mercy and put them out of their miserable, pathetic lives? Because it does raise an issue whether we are even imprisoning them or if we are just straight up torturing them. And at that point, I think it is a mercy killing. But of course, we don't have that kind of information, and I don't think the government's going to freely give that up. But I know at least one of them was thought to be released, or there was like some paperwork going through for an insanity plea. essentially he's gone insane, and so they were just going to release him back to like Saudi Arabia or some stuff. But I don't know if a life in torture and in duress is one worse than just straight up death. And I mean, like again, like there's no way that they are innocent, and I don't think there's any legal loopholes. And if it did go through, I don't think the general public would accept that loophole to even exist. And I think there would be a lot of, rightfully so, angry people who would be upset that they're going to walk free on a plea deal. Whether that is just a plea deal that, that maybe they do spend the rest of their life in prison or they just die. I mean, either way.
Definitely. Go ahead, Garrison.
Well, when you say torture, you're talking about more like the Donald Rumsfeld days. We haven't been, well, that we know of, we haven't been torturing them since then. And that really shows like the goodness of the American people, that even the like worst who caused us literally the most national harm we've had in my lifetime, like even then the American people were like, no, we shouldn't be torturing people because that's not what we do as a country. We're higher than that. And part of that, pride of being an American is that we do have a due process and a judicial system where even the worst of the worst, the Timothy McVeighs, the famous story of John Adams representing the Redcoats in the Boston Massacre because he believed that even the worst deserved a zealous advocate and to have their day in court. A big problem with the remaining few that we still have in Guantanamo is the evidence that we've secured is inadmissible in an American court because we, like, I'm going on an American pride here thing, but because we take pride in the fairness of our system for all. And so to the few remaining in Guantanamo, I say try them. If the evidence is inadmissible, then then we need to build a better case. And I know they've been trying for 21 years, but we need to either just try them and get it over with, or figure something out. But this limbo is not a good situation.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's definitely not a good situation there. Them being in limbo. Nikki, oh wait, Jeannie, go ahead.
I just want to say, when it comes to the death penalty, I remember that, oh my God, I forgot his name. The Green River Killer, he pleaded to life in prison for, 50 plus murders. And he was in, this maximum security, in solitary. And then someone decided, oh no, let's move him to Colorado so he can be in the general population. And other people just balked. No, no, no. So he got sent back to Washington, Gary Ridgway. He got sent back to Washington. So he pretty much has to stay in solitary because they know that somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who got murdered, of all those women, the 6 degrees of separation is always there if he is in the state of Washington. But I personally do not believe in the death penalty. I believe that torture is just being in prison for the rest of your life. And I think that is torture for a lot of people. And I'm happy with that.
Well, thank you, Jeannie, for your opinion on that. And I totally understand that. I think Nikki came in the room. I wanted to ask Nikki the same thing. We're talking about 9/11, Nikki. The five masterminds behind 9/11 and the terrorist attacks that killed 3,000 people. They might get plea deals and not get the death penalty. What are your thoughts?
Sorry, I'm finishing chewing on something. I thought you were going to talk for a little longer. I would love to see all of the people responsible for the 9/11 hijacking get executed by slicing small pieces of flesh off their body like 1 millimeter at a time over the course of like those people just harmed the nation in ways that I can't even fathom, and I would have no compunction about torturing them in ways that I think are absolutely inhuman. That being said, what I want to happen to them personally is different than how I think we should run a legal system. And I think that the death penalty, while there are absolutely circumstances in which someone deserves to be killed for what they've done, I don't trust our justice system to be the ones to hand out that punishment. I do not think we have done a good enough job making sure that the people who get put to death are guilty beyond any shadow of a doubt. Not just a reasonable. If you're going to kill somebody, it should literally be, we watched you do it on camera. You know what I mean? And then you confessed to it, and then we invaded your brain and made sure that you were confessing honest. Like, you can't kill somebody unless it's absolute, and it can never be absolute in the sake of in the criminal justice system. There's too many fucked up things that can go wrong. And I also think these people feed off fucking martyrdom. They want to be killed so that they can go to heaven and have their 72 virgins and whatever shit. Like, I don't want to give them that. I want to lock them in a prison for the rest of their lives and make them wait as long as possible for their 72 virgins. And maybe they'll think they're going to earn interest on their 72 virgins, get like 82 or something. But I want to make them fucking wait for it. So I understand the impetus, but I actually agree with Garrison here. What we're doing in Guantanamo is not necessarily morally wrong, because fuck those people, but morally wrong when we screw it up. And it is not a good signal of our values to the rest of the world. It is not good for us to be known as these type of people. And it doesn't help us in our relationships with the rest of the world to be seen as these type of people. So that's why we shouldn't do it. And my apologies for using the F-bomb. It is a bad habit that I am not working to correct, but that I will try to avoid indulging in.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So I got 4 hands up, and we got to close this segment out so Kat can go to her education. So 1 minute. And I'm 1 minute responses from each of you, and then the hands that are up right now are the ones that are gonna be able to respond to this. So Jordan, my brother Jordan, who adopted me as a brother a long time ago, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, Nikki said it perfectly. At the same time, though, there's a part of me that's like, if criminals fear the punishment. Now, when it comes to religious zealots, that's a whole nother issue. But in a general sense, if you don't have fear of the punishment of the crime, if it's, oh, well, I'll just go to jail, I'll never, I'll live through this period. And that's, if we were to get rid of the death penalty completely, this will cause issues. That's right. That's why, Washington and a lot of other blue states are getting worse and worse and worse, is because there's no repercussion for crime anymore. I'm not necessarily saying go as far as you get your hand lopped off like it used to be, but there's got to be some lines. But the general distrust in the justice system and all the problems there is prevalent. So it's hard to take a principled stance on that with those, with those things in mind. That's basically what I got.
Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate it, bro. Patriot Nelly. Patriot Nelly. All right, we'll go to Sean.
I just want to say, I think the idea of abolishing the death penalty is probably one of the most American positions you can have, because our criminal justice system is based on the fact that we would rather have 3 guilty people running free than 1 innocent person going to jail. And I think that we've seen, even in the past couple of years, they've executed people very recently who we found out through DNA evidence were not guilty. and could have been fully exonerated. And this happens way more often than people like to talk about. And the fact that that's happening is completely abhorrent and shouldn't happen at all. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think we can say that we can get it 100%. So I think just as a whole, we shouldn't do it at all.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, no, I get that completely. And I've talked about the injustice system of our justice system. Right now, it's 4 out of every 100 people are wrongfully convicted. And there are certain states that are actually trying to convict people just so they can get money. Colorado's one of them. And I personally know some things about Colorado that drive me nuts. And so you can't have that. You can't be doing that. So, Patriot Nelly, I saw that you said something. Go ahead, and then Dylan, and then we're gonna go on. Then we're gonna move on to the next segment.
Okay, I'm not for necessarily the death penalty or rotten in jail. I'm just. You hear me? I have my dogs outside. Sorry about that. Um, I'm not, I think people need to be tried on the best information, and if they're convicted, if there's the death penalty, let it be so. Don't linger, move on. I was alive, of course. Even my son, who was in the military, he had he had things on the line when 9/11 happened, and it's kind of like people, I don't see any sense in torturing anyone, period.
Thank you, Patriot, and I appreciate your contribution. Dylan, final thoughts before we move on.
Okay. Again, Nikki, agreeing with you in the rare instances that it does happen, which aren't so rare. While I would like to see them atomically dismembered and vaporized, you do make a good point. Now, of course, the 72 virgins are going to be Redditors and gay, so, I mean, yippee for them. Maybe accrued interest is a good idea after all. But I don't know if the total... I don't know, in a sense of national justice, I think in this case, I mean, unless the CIA and all of our intelligence operatives and every penny we've spent in nailing these bastards is wrong, which, I mean, it's the CIA, so take it with a grain of salt. But for the federal government to then, take that position and be like, oh, well, maybe there's like a possible chance that we got it wrong is kind of insulting. But I do like the idea of watching them slowly die. And I know there's a new technology that they've been trying to research recently that makes time seem like it takes longer to pass. Like, essentially, it's like almost something out of Star Trek where you'd be able to imprint like 20 years worth of life lived in somebody's mind in just a few minutes. So if we could just do that and accentuate it by a couple thousand years, I think that might be just enough to satiate that national need of vengeance.
That sounds cruel and
Literally
unusual.
a Black Mirror episode.
Oh no, well, they've been trying it with mice recently. I don't think. I mean, it's a common topic, anyways, but something akin to that.
All right. Well, thank you for your final thoughts, and once again, thank you, everybody. I'm so honored that you're here at the forum to join us with our special guest co-host Garrison and our co-host Katz. Katz is going to be moving into education, and we're going to go till probably 9:05 because we went 5 minutes past 8:30. So, but before we do that, let me just go over the forum guidelines really quick, just to make sure we're all on the same page. As freedom thinkers here in the Conservative Political Forum, we believe and we value our constitutional rights. We recognize that even amongst ourselves, there are varied opinions. We've got Democrats, we've got Republicans, we've got independents in here. That's totally fine. This forum, though, is a safe place for all, and we will not tolerate personal attacks or raising your voices at each other. And we also ask that you are considerate of people who do not want to hear profanity. Nikki. No, you already caught it, Nikki. I'm messing with you. Don't worry. I understand. Please be self-aware of your mic time, though, as we want to ensure that everybody can contribute to a particular topic. We don't want a bunch of cussing in the room, but if you slip up with the F word once in a while, I'm not going to jump in and be like, hey, because that's not how it is here. But, if every other word is the F word, then Katz and I have to be like, whoa. I mean, because people are listening to this and they're listening to the recording of this later on. So that's why we do that. But Katz, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Welcome, everybody. So my segment is called Reducation. And, I lost my document. All right. Sorry. It's our weekly segment designed to provide education via point counterpoint with each other on topics that are important to many Americans. Sometimes these topics can be emotionally charged. All forum guidelines are in place, which is what Jason just covered. We expect speakers to remain civil. If you have a mic, you'll have a chance to respond. Raise your hand, I will call on you. Because it is a short segment, a very short segment, keep your answers concise so everybody can participate. Try to keep it to 2 to 3 minutes. We do have a couple people that tend to be long-winded, so I'm gonna have to. I hate to interrupt you and ask you to kind of wrap it up if you do that, but hopefully I don't need to do that. Anyway, I did post a couple different articles in the Nest about what we're going to talk about. So what we're going to talk about is the Twitter whistleblower. I think his name is Peter Zatko or something like that. He testified in front of Congress under oath a couple days ago. He is considered to be an industry expert in the cybersecurity area. Reporters, believe it or not, tried to do everything they could to discredit him and find dirt on him, including attempting to pay off associates of his, and no one could find any dirt on this guy. So it seems like he is clean and that maybe we can trust what he's saying. But at any rate, the whole thing revolves around Twitter not doing what they should, not protecting our data, and that data that we can't even imagine is being leaked and available. Supposedly, like 4,000 engineers can access it, including some employees that they allowed to come in who supposedly, according to Zatko, were spies for other countries. Now, Zatko says they're gathering more data than we can imagine, and that anyone could come in and have all your information on your phone, including accounts and things like that. So I guess I wonder, are people concerned about this? And what should be done about it? Why is Twitter lied, according to this guy? And then also, just as kind of a side, TikTok, when TikTok first came out and started to get popular, remember, I think it was Trump that tried to ban it, get rid of it, because it's a Chinese company and they supposedly are mining data. I wish I'd remember the source, but a few weeks ago I read on a legitimate source that it got leaked out and someone from China said, we have a mirror image of all these users, American users' data, like more data than you could imagine. But the concerns with the Twitter and the data available is doxing, but also political um, political ramifications. If you don't belong to the right party, that they could go after you and get your information. So, what thoughts do we have about what's going on with that? Jordan, I think it is. Please go ahead.
So I'm just no surprise, like this isn't even kind of shocking to me. Um, it's become very evident that political agenda, globalist agenda, and things like that are intrinsically tied to tech. Um, I guess you call it big tech or whatever, but it's not a surprise. I'm not shocked by this. It's gross and it shouldn't be happening, but this is unfortunately kind of the reality we live in, and it's only going to get worse. I thoroughly believe this is the goal of the enemy. Um, in that, the more control, the more information, rather, the more information they have, the more control they have, and eventually that will be put to use against us on a level that I don't think anyone's ready for. But, call me paranoid, call me whatever, but, I'm just trying to reread Revelations and, check for any signs I can, because things are getting worse at a drastic rate. That's about all I got to say.
All right, thanks, Jordan. And I'm not going to call you paranoid at all. But I do also wonder, it's like, isn't anyone concerned about this on a personal level? Jeannie, please go ahead.
They talk about Twitter, but Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I'm sure the same thing could possibly be happening to them as well. So, I'm just real careful what I post, especially on Facebook. Because I use that for, personal stuff, not, political. So I'm just careful about, what I put up there, what information they actually do have, that I'm sure they can dig and find it. But, I I guess I'm not that worried about what they know about me because there's not much to know. And maybe that's being naive. I don't know. Maybe someone else can address that.
Well, I think what they're saying, if I understand correctly, is that they can actually get into your phone and get to your accounts. So if you've got accounts on your phone, it's not just what you're posting. It's like everything. Let's talk.
I mean, like your bank stuff? Is that what
That,
you're talking about?
yeah, unless I misunderstood something, it sounded to me like they can access pretty much anything. Let's talk. Go ahead, please.
Hey guys, what's going on? So I just came in, and yeah, I'm not surprised by any of this whatsoever. I mean, being able to just this is why I was always suspicious of TikTok from like 2019. Everyone was always like, "Hey, why don't you have TikTok? Why don't you have this?" I don't know, maybe because I'm worried that it's a Chinese app that could like possibly be like that could take our information. I'm not just saying it's a Chinese. Our own government is doing it, I believe personally, and there's no better proof than that. I mean, this is like some George W. Bush NSA stuff we're talking about, and I can say that because I'm a Republican who does not like George W. Bush. But like literally, it's like we're going back to that period at this point, except it's from the Democrats here with big tech, and I mean, it's just atrocious. I mean, I can't believe it really because I mean, this is why I mean, I usually don't go all out crazy with what I post. I just try to be as formal as I can with my opinions. But I don't like to go out with conspiracy theories or stuff like that that they can track down and use it against myself if like I'm getting a job or something like that. Like they can use this as like a defense or like an attack to like threaten you and like with the information that's on here and the fact that they can basically take anything. At first it was just something small and like now it's just so much information that they can get off of just one person. I mean, it's just it really is just really disappointing, but even just scary at the same time. I think that any American can practically get their information spied on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And to this day, I do not have TikTok and I have no intention of getting it.
People make fun of me for not having it. I think I should. I think I am in the right if I don't want to like have my information like looked at.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's why I don't have it either. But this really bothers me. And I know Dan Bongino has talked about a VPN that keeps your data from being mined. And, I don't know if these people can get past something like that, but sometimes I think about using that. Nikki, what you got, bud?
Okay, so I think I might be the only person in here with a computer science background, and probably the only person in here who's actually hung out with a lot of hackers. I haven't hung out with the name of this guy, Peter Zatko. His hacker name is Mudge, which is what everybody in the tech industry calls him. I haven't hung out with Mudge personally, but I've hung out with a decent number of other folks that know him, for example. And it's what's funny is you look at him from the '90s when he was long hair and pimply and all those things, and now he's like wearing a suit and looking like he worked in government because he did. Um, the he brought forward two very specific allegate like two general categories of concerns, and I'm going to read you what he said about what those were. Quote, and this is from his testimony 2 days ago. Excuse me. I discovered two basic issues. First, they don't know what data they have, where it lives, or where it came from, and so unsurprisingly, they can't protect it. And this leads to the second problem, which is the employees that have too much access to too much data and too many systems. You can think of it this way, which is doesn't matter who has keys if you don't have any locks on the doors. And this vulnerability is kind of not in the abstract. It's not far-fetched to say that any employee inside the company could take over the accounts of all the senators in this room. So to address what you were saying earlier, they can't reach inside your phone. Um, and that's not because of what Twitter is doing so much as it's because of both Android and iOS have very strong protections on what data on your phone individual apps can access. So even if Twitter, the app, wanted to go rooting around in your contacts, unless you give it access to your contacts, it can't go get into those. It can't go read your photos unless you give it access to your photos, for example. And Twitter generally tries to obey its privacy protections that it makes promises on in the apps because it knows that building functionalities it shouldn't be doing are things that would get it in a lot of trouble and basically kill the service. The risk with Twitter today is not in it being malicious. The risk with Twitter today is in it being inept. Is in people who work on the software, the core software for it, not having routine security updates on their laptop, so that in a potential scenario, someone could sneak in a Trojan horse or a flaw or something like that because they were able to compromise an employee. On a more basic level, it's having thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who have access to, Joe Biden's Twitter account, to Ted Cruz's Twitter account, and who could post whatever they wanted to it, who could send potentially DMs to other people. These systems are treated at some of these tech companies with less than like bank grade security. And the problem is, that these are communication platforms that people rely on for like very significant things that are not just, fucking around on the internet, messing around on the internet. And so, you know, Twitter in some ways still sort of thinks of itself as a startup, not as an enterprise grade communications platform. And so, they trust employees, and Facebook does this as well. Most employees at Facebook have access to what's known as prod or production, the ability to push code onto the company's website if they want to. And so it's like you end up in these situations with these tech companies where, you have senators, congressmen, the president, using these tools, and the amount of security is less than what you would get at your local bank. And Twitter doesn't seem to feel like it's necessary to be completely forthright about what kind of data it has on users, when it deletes that data, if it's requested to, and all those sorts of things. And so for something that is that important to society, and yeah, it is. People get their information off of Twitter. They make important decisions based on information they see on Twitter. They're acting as though they're just some fly by night fun startup in somebody's basement, and they're clearly not at this point. So that was what his main revelation. That was pretty much the majority of what his revelation was. And the securities violation stuff is basically they're a publicly traded company and they're not being honest about this with investors and regulators, and that is not okay. So,
thank you, Nikki. So if you could help me out, the comment that he made when he said something about the senators and their data, I guess I took it to mean like Twitter had a lot more on the senators than what they tweeted or their email or their phone number. Are you saying that's not what he meant?
that's correct. What he meant was that anybody at Twitter could log into any of their accounts and post as them. So that anybody at Twitter any Twitter employee basically could log into any of our accounts and put up tweets, send direct messages potentially, reply to people, delete tweets as any of us, basically. And obviously that's something that some people at Twitter should be able to do. You need to have some people in your company with the ability to access any user account, but you generally want that number of people to be really, really tiny. And Twitter has not had the kind of regimented system in place to make sure that the necessary permissions to do those sorts of things were extremely limited.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that explanation.
Well, and I will say, just to
Go
clarify,
ahead.
it is possible to say that the question would be how many employees could read your DMs, basically, because people put a lot of very personal stuff in their DMs. Garison has sent me some very personal stuff in his DMs. Me, I won't say what kind of personal stuff, but you can imagine.
Oh my god.
And
Whoa,
I
don't
want
slander me on here.
I don't want. I wasn't saying anything untoward. You're talking about your law school exams, which are definitely slanted. But no, I was saying just that I can imagine senators putting personal communication information, God, even bank account information. People are stupid. Stuff like that into DMs. And so, yeah, if you've put really if you put really personal information into your DMs, and people at Twitter employees can read your DMs, and they've said no, they can't, but they haven't exactly said how no, they can't, like what the process is for making sure that only certain people can get access to DMs. That's a reasonable concern, because people think of their DMs as private.
All right, I appreciate that, Nikki. Excellent info. Patriot Nelly, what do you have? Patriot Nelly, are you there? All right, I don't know what the deal is. Colin.
Garrison, we all know it's stuff we already know about, so don't be so cooped up about this stuff. Come on.
That's what you wanted to talk about, Colin, was go back to the private messages and Garrison.
I'm joking. No.
Oh my god.
I'm allowed to have jokes, Jason. Come on.
Leave
No,
Garrison.
I know you're joking. I just you stopped there, so I'm like, wait a second. You didn't just raise your
hand. Patriot Nelly, are you there? I don't know. Garrison, do you have any comments about this?
My only comment is, how dare Nikki try to slander me? I haven't sent anything like he's alluding to. I literally had people messaging me like, what did you send Nikki? Literally nothing. What is up with that?
Yeah, he's just smearing your good name, Garrison. It's not good. And The
last thing I sent Nikki was to tell him to cut back on using curse words on the space.
I think it's pronounced schmear, Jason.
Schmear.
Who pronounces it like that?
It
Schmear.
sounds
Schmear, Colin.
German.
Schmear.
Yes.
What's pronounced schmear?
The stuff you put on bagels.
Yeah, that's the word.
All right, Cats, go ahead. Take your ring back
All
over.
right. I got a legitimate hand here. Oh, Nikki, thanks for those DMs about Garrison, by the way. Dylan?
I knew you'd enjoy them.
Oh, yes, immensely.
I
Dylan?
may or may not have been one of those busybodies. Yeah, social media is especially been very much a part of anyone alive today, whether you're using Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and a lot of people have been pushing for an internet bill of rights of sorts. And I think that it is now high time, especially with what we've seen in data breaches and just how companies are reckless with our information, especially with who they sell it to, who brokers it, that it's time that the American people have at least some kind of defense, legal defense against companies who are misusing and abusing their users' data, and to give those people rights to take back those kinds of issues and take them to court if it's so damaging and defaming to them from their lack of protection and safety. Same as you would have a safety deposit box with a bank. If they're not willing to protect your information that you store inside of it or your goods, I think you should have some security in place for that kind of event. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, or anti-Republican or anything like that.
Thank you, Dylan. I'm just curious. Could you all give me a peace sign if you have TikTok downloaded and you use it? Peace sign. One? Only one? Two? That's it? I'm kind of surprised.
And it's the youngest guy in Colin.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by Colin.
I have TikTok because of one of our people that comes to this forum is a conservative and does TikTok videos. So I downloaded it to follow her and support her in doing that. But TikTok, she had 20,000 followers, and TikTok, she basically after Biden's speech posted Biden's speech, but with a mustache on Biden. That was it. And TikTok banned her account.
Whoa. Okay. I guess I thought, I don't know, it just kind of freaked me out. And I actually listened to this guy's whole testimony while I was working. It was 2.5 hours, and I just turned it on and laid my phone down and worked on my emails, and I was just kind of like, wow, a little blown away. Patriot Nelly, are you there yet? Or are you still off somewhere, la la land? Colin?
So actually, this is actually a serious point. Is there are many people who make a living off of social media now, and people being able to, like Twitter, be able to get in these accounts and potentially they have relationships, and this could be a way that people use revenge on people who use these platforms to make a living. This is dangerous for those people.
Yeah, absolutely true. Hey Sean, I haven't heard from you. Did you have some thoughts on this?
He's thinking about something right now.
Apparently. Anyway, y'all leave Garison alone. I just want to say that y'all leave him alone.
Free Garison.
Leave me alone. Sorry, that was a callback.
Sean, you're my new favorite. During my section, I will call on you first every time.
Yeah, I agree. I feel bad for Garrison. I'd be a little bit embarrassed in this position.
Now you just sound like a suck up, Let's.
Yeah,
got a little brown on your nose, Let's. You should wipe it off.
I'm not sure you'd enjoy being in his position, Let's, honestly, but that's just from what I know about you.
Okay, Nikki, come on. It always goes back to that, doesn't it?
I
I'm
say
all for freedom
anything
of speech
sexual. I
except
have
for
not said a
Nikki.
single
Nikki needs
thing
his speech like
sexual
blocked
until now.
sometimes.
I am a good boy. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Nellie, last call. Patriot Nellie, what's up with you?
She disconnected. So, do you have any final thoughts, Kat?
No, but it has been interesting actually because I guess my take on what was going on was a little bit different. I guess it was more, it's a little less concerning, but it's still very concerning from different levels, like the doxing and um, people accessing your account and potentially posting as you, and the possible political ramifications. Like I think Let's Talk spoke about that. But I am curious if anybody does use any of those VPNs as kind of a measure of protection. Colin, did you have something?
This is totally unrelated to the thing. Cat, is the cat in your profile your cat or just some random cat you found online?
No, it actually is my cat.
I've wondered that question for so long.
Yeah, I've wondered
That's a
for so
cute
long.
looking
I
cat.
finally asked it. What's the cat's name?
The cat is Milo, and it is a Seal Point mink ragdoll.
Well, Milo is adorable.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he is really a good-looking little creature and very lovable if you know anything about the ragdoll breed.
I
Um,
have two Scottish folds. I don't know, so Scottish folds are an interesting breed. I like their ears.
oh yeah, those are interesting. Cool. Are they really loving? I'm not sure about
Yeah,
them.
no, they're both well, one's social, one's anti-social. He kind of hides a lot, but they're both from Ukraine.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Scottish fold from Ukraine. Interesting. So, does anybody use any of those VPNs to protect their data? Anybody?
I don't have any VPNs.
Okay.
Yeah, depends on, usually when I'm like traveling to a hotel or something like that, and I don't trust the Wi-Fi, for example, is when I'll use a VPN. Sometimes if you want to access, like if you're overseas and you want to access like Netflix in the US, for example, if you have a Netflix US account, but it would think you're, overseas, it's helpful to be able to VPN that way. Those are the primary ones that I would say I use it for. So
All right.
it's not
Thank
really,
you.
it's
Appreciate.
really not that necessary these days. 10, 15 years ago, there was a lot less security around accessing the web because you didn't have HTTPS. But now, in most cases, just a regular browser connection, even for a public internet access, is generally fine. So
All right, cool. Thank you. Appreciate everybody. Thank you for your participation, and we will move to
Headline.
Jason.
But first, do the guidelines real quick, Cats.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. Hang on. All right, welcome everybody. We are freedom thinkers here in the Conservative Political Forum. We believe in and value our constitutional rights. We recognize that even amongst ourselves, we're going to have varied opinions. This forum is a safe place for everybody. We don't tolerate personal attacks and we don't do raised voices. We ask that you are considerate of persons who prefer not to hear profanity. We do have some people that listen to the space later on as it is recorded. They may have children nearby and not want that overheard. Please be self-aware of your mic time. We want to make sure everyone who wants to contribute to a particular topic is able to.
Thank you, Cats. All right, guys. Colin, hold on to your hold on to your speaker because you probably will want to respond to this because I found an article about something we talked about last week, and it's going to be my final headline. And I'm going to have Garrison jump in on some of it. He's looking it up real quick so we can talk about it a little more. And Sean, you have your hand up. Did you have something you want to say, buddy?
I was about to say, speaking of cybersecurity, the KFC Twitter handle just got hacked, and they're posting some wild things.
Wow.
Wow.
That's crazy.
About chicken
It's pretty
or
bad.
something else?
Maybe everyone should check out the KFC Twitter handle.
Cats, can you talk with people for a minute? I want to find something real quick to send to Garrison.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe a little bit more about the security stuff.
Well, maybe I want to talk about cats.
Ooh, we have many. My question was for the KFC. Is it finger licking good?
Oh, is it?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to check it out.
It is looking good.
Yeah.
Is it like what's their exact handle? Like at what? KFC?
At KFC_ES. I think it's like the Spanish KFC, but they're posting some interesting things.
Okay. Dylan, did you have something?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about cats, we have had many, many, many kitties. We've had quite a numero catos. Right now we have a few. What's your favorite color of cat? Because like breeds don't matter, they're cats. It's orange, it's black, it's a calico. What's your favorite kind of cat?
We have gray and black ones in my house. I have a Maine Coon.
Oh, those are so sweet.
Well, I actually grew up with a Seal Point Siamese, and he lived to be 19. And so I've always loved that Siamese coloring, the dark face, the dark legs, the dark tail. And then my boyfriend had a Seal Point Siamese, and so we've had her for many years. And I learned about the ragdoll breed like maybe 10 years ago, and I've wanted one for a super long time. But since they're purebreds, they are pricey, and I didn't have enough money to get one until somewhat recently. So they, if you get that coloration, they look like a Siamese, except they have the long fur.
Oh, nice. One of our oldest cats, her name was Callie. She ended up living to 22 years old. She was a calico, and her daughter Tiger lived to roughly the same age. She was like 21 and a half. So yeah, cats can live a very, very long time if you take care of them.
Definitely.
That is long.
Well, so, cats. Speaking of cats, I'm going to ask you to watch Raise Hands because I have Garrison reading something. Because my next segment is going to be a little bit debated with Colin. I'm going to let him jump in on some of it, but I wanted Garrison to back me up with some of the stuff he's reading. But we're going to go over some headlines because I'm so glad you all are here, and I just want to go through some headlines. And then I have the main topic headline that we're going to talk about, and then we can go over the other headlines we talked about as well. But first, before we do that, I've been going over a scripture with you guys over the last couple weeks. We're going through Psalms 91. Tonight, I want to read Psalms 91, 5, and 6. A lot of this has to do with some of the stuff maybe you're going through in your life, and and I just want to bring some encouragement to you all. Psalms 91, 5, and 6 out of the New International Version says, "You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalk in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday." I know that sounds like, well, where did that come from? Well, that came from last week's scriptures was talking about how God protects you, but I won't go back and read them. But if you read Psalms 91, we've been through now 1 through 6. So God will protect you. I just wanted to throw that out there. And so, like I said, I'm always honored that you guys are here. Let's go through the headlines, and here we go. Exclusive. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis followed through on a promise to drop off illegal immigrants in progressive states. He sent 2 planefuls of migrants to Martha's Vineyard on Wednesday. So today he sent 2 planefuls of illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. So that's one of the headlines. Rand Paul threatens to investigate royalties to Fauci and other officials if the GOP takes the Senate. The article says here the Kentucky Republican then implied that there could be a reason for this, stating that the government vaccine committee members have not disclosed what, if any, royalties they have received from companies that make the vaccines. Paul said if the GOP takes control of the Senate in November midterm elections, they will investigate the matter. And then he went on to talk about more, but that was the gist of it. Rand Paul saying if, there's been some shady stuff going on, and they will, if the GOP takes over, there will be an investigation. So look out, Fauci. Netflix continues to have issues. Layoffs are piling up with Netflix and their production team. It says Netflix fired 30 employees in its animation division on Wednesday. That's today. The latest edition of the company's downsizing plan that saw more than 450 workers dismissed earlier this year, The Hollywood Reporter confirmed. Okay, search warrants reveals Mike Lindell's phone was seized by the FBI as a part of a supposed identity theft damage of protected computers investigation. So Lindell complained about that. I put out a tweet today that said, apparently and this was some of it was a joke, so don't take this seriously for those of you that might. But I just want to throw out my tweet. It said, apparently Mike Lindell is a terrorist according to that joke of an agency called the FBI. His company wouldn't give them a discount? My Pillows discovered that the FBI was on the naughty list, and then I put communist FBI. So that was the kind of a joke in there. Although I don't think it's right that they're just going after people that oppose everything, and it's part of the free speech stuff that's going on. All right, here's the main headline. And Colin, I know we talked about this last week, and you'll get a chance to respond, but I actually found articles on this to make sure that you understood that I'm not just making up stuff. So this was directed towards you, not to cause problems with you, but to bring some education. John Fetterman, he helped free a convicted murderer known as the Son of the Devil. Now, last week our discussion about Fetterman wants to let criminals be free, and it's not just drug offenses. He wants murderers to go free too, and there's a list of that stuff. I sent it to Garison too, so that he could help me go over some of it because it's a lot. But Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, who is running against Dr. Mehmet Oz for the state's open United States Senate seat, helped free a convicted murderer, first-degree murder from prison in 2019. In November of 1973, Raymond Johnson, along with Kenneth Wayne Smith, lured a 27-year-old Charles Blinkley Jeffers to a residence in York County, Pennsylvania, where they shot and stabbed him to death before robbing him and attempting to dispose the body. So Fetterman, there's a whole list, and I sent some stuff to Garrison too. Of 2019, he put a whole list of they're not drug dealers, they were murderers, people that have murdered people that he wants to get free and out of prison. And I don't think everybody should be free and out of prison if they've committed murders. Some people can be redeemed, but I think that, he had a whole list of guys, and some of them are not good guys. So, and then I want to top that off with some of the stuff that's going on. An article says in San Francisco, they did a poll, and it said almost they were victims of a crime in the past 5 years. So they're afraid to go out because they're victims of crime. And so I kind of want to talk about this because I want to discuss what's going on in our country and what is actually I believe people deserve second chances in life. But if you commit murders, and in Washington State, we have a guy that's committed 3 different murders. He was in prison. They let him go. He committed another murder. Then it was like the 3 strikes you're out. And now they're going to let him out of prison 15 years later after he's committed like 3 murders and rapes. And they're going to let him out of prison again because they want to be soft on crime. And I just want to talk about that a little. But Garrison, do you want to jump in on the Fetterman stuff before we get going here with this? Because you probably had time to read, correct?
I'm in the middle of reading. From my understanding, as lieutenant governor, Fetterman's job was to oversee the pardon and commutation board for Pennsylvania. And so, as head of that board, he sent recommendations to the governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Wolf. Also a Democrat, and um, he has sent over several. So I'm still reading, but my understanding is it requires a unanimous vote, and Fetterman was okay with commuting the sentence of the person you're talking about. Um, the guy did serve 36 years when he was commuted, but I so that's all I've really got a chance to read. Did you have a question specifically, or did you want to
Well,
throw it
what
to Paul?
I just guys that were murderers and stuff in that article, the other article I sent you. But I actually want to ask the room in here, have any of you been in the city where you don't feel safe when you're walking in a city? And I'll bring up a point. In 2019, we took a train, my wife and I, to Portland to just for a day. And as soon as we get off the train, there was just homeless tents all along their train station. Did you know that I thought I was going to have fun walking around Portland, and I didn't have any fun? I was actually on edge the whole time. Like I had to feel like I had to watch my back. We had people walking up to us just randomly. I'm like, "Whoa, what's this guy going to do?" Have any of you guys ever felt like unsafe like walking through uh your city? Because that's I dealt with that when we went to Portland, and I would never go to downtown Seattle. That's just the same way. I mean, people are getting stabbed when they walk around downtown Seattle. So to talk about, crimes and stuff, I just want to know where you felt. Garrison, go ahead.
Even in Oklahoma City, where I feel incredibly safe all of the time, we uh, none of you guys know where I live, so we often leave our doors unlocked because it's not really an issue here. Especially where I grew up, nobody even locked their car doors. But that said, there are parts of Oklahoma City that when the sun goes down, I absolutely avoid. Like you can tell, like sunset, like like certain parts around our state capital or on the south side of OKC, we won't be seen there after dark. It's just too scary for us, honestly. And that's in a very safe community, in my opinion.
Definitely. No, I get that. Yeah, you still have to be careful no matter where you are. I mean, you can't I would never let my guard down just because I grew up in the city I grew up in. It would be, I mean, I want to move more to a smaller city and I'll feel a little bit better, but I'll still probably always have that my guard up type of mentality. Jordan.
Yeah, so I've spent time in a few different big cities and got to witness, a number of different interesting things happen, being out after dark. But it doesn't matter where you are. Pretty much every city is going to have an area. Every state has certain areas that you should more or less avoid. Um, but I thought, like, I lived in Eugene, Oregon for a while, and I thought it was pretty safe to be just out and about and whatever, and compared to Chicago or Seattle, because I'd spent time in like the south side of Chicago and stuff, and when I was in the Navy doing things I shouldn't have been, mind you. But I got my jaw shattered on both sides in Eugene, and it hadn't gotten as bad as it is there now. This is years ago, um, but yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. You got to keep your head on a swivel, and it's just generally a better idea that if you are going to go out at night, have some sort of form of protection and probably have another person, you know. Um, but yeah, just generally speaking, like I'm not a big fan of any major city. If you're not familiar with your neighborhood and you don't have a means to protect yourself, and you're not observant enough, you probably shouldn't go out. But especially a lot of like the bigger cities, New York, Chicago, L.A., Portland, Seattle, like I mean, big D cities. They're yeah, it can be a little bit sketchy.
So Jordan, let's bring that up real quick because if you don't mind, I would like to bring up the person you knew that was in Portland a couple years ago that
Oh yeah,
was downtown and was murdered in the street, basically.
yeah. So Jay Danielson, man. I don't know if you guys remember this happening, but a gentleman who happened to have a Patriot Prayer hat on was shot in cold blood by a piece of garbage excuse for a human. But he was my wife's cousin actually dated him for a while, and I stayed at his house at one point in time and met him a few years prior. And he was, as far as I know, and for everything I could tell, he was the type of person who would go to rallies and stuff in Portland and things like that, mostly to document it. And he was definitely a patriot, but he actually wasn't directly associated with or a member of the Patriot Prayer Group. And he was hunted down and killed, in cold blood. It was staged. The guy, I can't remember his name, um, but had admitted to following them. And the video of it happening is pretty clear that he was instigating with a point. That he was looking to go and kill someone who's on the opposing side. And with the things that are going on now, especially with like the president's last eerie speech, and just everything that's happened, and the responses being so clearly unequally yoked. These things are becoming more commonplace. But yeah, it was yeah, it was a hard time for my family. Like I said, I was not close to him specifically, but my wife was, and her sisters and her cousin specifically. And it was funny because they tried to paint him as this racist and this ultra conservative, blah 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 blah. And anyone who knew him, will say like, dude, he dated like 2 white chicks in his life. He was the furthest thing from racist, furthest thing from confrontational you'd ever get, and someone who was there to kind of document it, and he just happened to be with a friend who was a member of that Patriot Prayer Group and gave him a hat to wear that day, and that's really all it took to end him up shot dead in the streets. But yeah, it was quite a terrible event, and yeah,
Well,
that's about all
thanks
I
for
got on that.
sharing. Thanks for sharing, Jordan. And by the way, guys, I know Jordan personally. I worked with him for a couple of years, and we text a lot. And he is like a brother to me. I don't have a lot of family in my life, and he's kind of taken me in as a family. We talk. We'll probably be talking even more. But I was there the day that stuff happened, and I saw the look on Jordan's face. I mean, he was. I've never seen someone so like he was pissed. It was, and I get it. Like. And you just have to, like you said, after you have your head on a swivel if you're going to be in the city. And I actually avoid some of the city stuff that I used to do. I mean, I used to be safe to go downtown. We'd go down to Game Town and go hang out and have fun. And I won't do that now. My wife, I won't take her down there. I won't go down there with friends. Why? You know what I mean? Why put myself in a place where a bunch of homeless tents are right along the street, and and they have knives and stuff in their tents, and they go out and stab people, which happens a lot in Seattle. But thank you, Jordan, for sharing, my brother.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love you much, and to everyone else in here, I appreciate the times I've gotten to spend here. It is almost 11:30 here. I moved to Tennessee recently, and I've got to be up in the morning, so I'm gonna have to sign off. But keep doing what you're doing, and I'll keep trying to pop in as much as I can. I love and appreciate all of you.
Thanks, Jordan. Jeannie. Jeannie, go ahead. Safety, city.
I won't go downtown Seattle at all. My little town of Renton is getting pretty pathetic. I still go there, but I'm I'm definitely a lot more safety conscious. But for the last few weeks, I've been staying at my daughter's house, which is in Auburn, which is in between Seattle and Tacoma, where Jason lives, and my where I lived for 10 years was in Des Moines, and that used to be a nice little bedroom community, off of Seattle, and it's where SeaTac Airport is. It's a little bit further south, and that place has gone down the drain. I mean, that place is horrible. I mean, I, I drove through there, and I was just amazed how horrible it got so fast with
And
the
how
homeless.
industrialized, right? It's gotten so industrialized fast too, I noticed.
Oh yeah, where our house was, it is now industrial. I mean, that whole area is industrial. Yeah, it was. I think it was part of the city plan because they wanted more way to make income through taxes instead of just property taxes. So that's the way they can get more income into their small little city. But that place went to hell in a handbasket pretty damn fast. It's sad to see it though. But anyway,
Yeah, that's
that's what.
true.
And and one more thing, I was in Santa Monica a month ago, and I always thought that is a nice safe area. And oh my God, walk the streets in Santa Monica down, even down by the pier, because there's so many people out there now that are like scary people. I mean, I was scared, and that's a shame because just 4 years ago I was there and I didn't feel any fear at all. So I don't know. To each their own, I guess, right?
Yeah, and things have changed over the last couple of years, but I know I agree with you, and I do agree. Des Moines is way different. Like all in that area, my church was there, and it is way different. I mean, it is totally. It's like, whoa, what is this place? So, Dylan, and then Nikki.
Okay, so this relates to a trip that I had taken with one of my friends down to San Francisco, about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. And we went down to the Mission District in San Francisco, which I know Nikki is familiar with. And I think I've told him this story. I don't know if I've told anyone else. But so we were there, and we were going down there to get a burrito from Mission District. And as we're walking down the street, there's this dude just kind of like foot pedaling himself down the street. Not exactly like, riding the bike, but just kind of balancing himself and using his feet to just push off the ground and go by. Full ski mask, had a bag full of stuff, and he was just driving by looking through cars. And then there was an intersection right by the burrito place where there were people standing in the middle of the street and yelling across at each other. So, yeah, there are definitely parts of major cities that I would definitely not go to ever, because you're going to be raped, murdered, and robbed. Not exactly in that order, maybe, who knows? But it's like completely lawless. It didn't even feel like there was a police presence. There were cruisers that were going by, but there's just you can't even stop that at that point when it's like so much of the populace and just so much of it like an area of a city. Um, Luckily, there's nothing exactly violent. It's just like petty theft and the likes, but it's still just very very overwhelming, especially for me, somebody who's lived in the suburbs my entire life, just out in the middle of California, just to go to a major city. It's definitely, a wake up. Even here in our downtown in Fresno, we have homeless and we have some rather violent altercations with that, mainly through just drug trafficking and the likes, a lot of gang violence. There's parts of Fresno that just the police cruisers never go to, so it's it's definitely an issue that I don't think more spending is going to cause a solution to. I think there's a lot of underlying factors that have become so complex, and there are just so many reactionary measures that people have taken that I don't think they fully understand what they're asking for, and if what they're asking for will actually solve the problem, or if it's just something that's been repeated for so long that people feel must be the solution because no one suggested anything else.
Definitely. Sorry for the pause. Nikki, go ahead, my friend.
So, I mean, I get where you guys are coming from. I live in a major city. I have homeless people camping outside my building. I grew up in Silicon Valley. There are tons of homeless people in San Francisco. And I know how it can feel uncomfortable to be walking down the street and have somebody ask you for money, or have somebody who's like kind of mentally insane asking you for money, or like trying to sell you a thing, or telling you about their crazy uncle or whatever. It, I get that. And homelessness is a major problem. Mental health is a major problem in pretty much all our major cities. And it's something that cities are working on to a greater and lesser extent. And some are doing better at it, and some are not. And I certainly probably would not hang out in certain parts of uh, San Francisco at night. I've been up there, like the 16th Street station. It's like an open air drug market. I mean, it's not somewhere you want to take your kids. It's not somewhere you feel safe raising children, and that's a real problem. And I'm glad to live in a city that is taking those sorts of concerns more seriously and really trying to push back against this idea that we can just accommodate that kind of behavior. Because at the end of the day, people expect you to have a city where they feel safe at night. If you're going to pay $2,000 a month in rent for an apartment, you don't want to walk around downtown and feel like you're going to get stabbed. It's not a plus. It doesn't add character. All that being said, the place that I have felt the most unsafe of all the places that I have traveled in the U.S. I've definitely traveled. Southern Italy is a great place to feel unsafe when you get off the train. Like, there are parts of Southern Italy where you're like, this is run by the mob. This is very clearly like I am
Italy, like the country?
beaten up. Yeah, the country. Yeah, southern Italy, the country. I have felt legitimately unsafe when I got off the train into a random town in southern Italy. But in the U.S., also the Palestinian territories, did not enjoy going to the West Bank. That was really fucking scary. But in the U.S., the creepiest place that I have been is Tampa, Florida, because like the degree of just like, what am I trying to say? Ron DeSantis on steroids that you get in like Tampa, Florida. Like, there was a shop that was just like a patriotism store that I drove by, and it was like a 3-story building with like a gigantic, American flag, and just like all this crazy ass, you know, I mean, it was like the exact opposite of being like in any kind of like liberal America that I had ever felt. And
Okay, he's messing with everybody right now. I
no,
can
I'm
tell.
swear to God. I swear to God. I swear to God. I felt like such a fish out of water. There was no Whole Foods there. Like, it was like walking around. It was like being from Mars and walking around on Venus.
They
You know what
didn't
I mean?
have your favorite vegan mayonnaise.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was just none of the places where the say, I can handle Miami. I can handle Austin, Texas. I can handle Kansas City. I can handle, Iowa even. But this felt like uniquely like Florida man. And it was just like, all right, this is fucking weird. So.
Trolls will be trolls. There's a big difference between feeling unsafe and feeling like a fish out of water.
Yeah,
I would invite you, if you felt that way in Tampa, I would invite you to come to Oklahoma City, or better yet, rural Oklahoma. That would be a blast to take you through.
I think I would enjoy it. I enjoy a bunch of closet cases, so I think I'd have fun there.
Wow. Colin, go ahead.
So, Nikki, I know you're trolling a bit, but like, I think this brings up a good point. Because me, who's lived in a city basically my entire life and has experienced going downtown and seeing homeless people, that doesn't scare me. Where what you're describing, no Whole Foods, that genuinely scares me. But not necessarily the Whole Foods, but like different areas that you're not used to scares you. And it's not the fact that you may not feel safe for different reasons. And though I've adapted to certain areas, Jason has adapted to different areas. Dylan has adapted to different areas. Nikki has adapted to different areas. Jeannie has adapted to different areas. And when you go to a different area, you're not always going to feel the safest. Sometimes you're going to be on your toes. And I feel like that's just a reality of life.
Yeah, it's how I feel when I go to one of your like water death traps that you spend all day in, like I don't like it there. I understand why some people do, but like I don't like it there. People drown in those sorts of places and I will never feel comfortable.
Nikki, did you never learn how to swim? Wait, no. Nikki, do you know how to swim?
I had to learn in college. I was not very good at it, and I don't enjoy it. So no, I don't think if you put a gun to my head and I had to try to swim across an Olympic-sized pool right now, I'm not. I think I'd make it, but like I would hate myself. So no, I think pools are horrible, and they should be banned until we figure out what's going on.
So let me go back to what Colin was saying in a lot of ways. Yeah, we adapt to places, but the cities I grew up in are not safe anymore. And I'm not going to walk downtown where a homeless guy's a knife. People, I live in Tacoma. It's a city that has about 220,000 people in it. But I live in a region that has almost 5 million people in it because there is no space between from where I live. It's city after city after city after city. And Seattle has 750,000 people in it. But the surrounding areas are, we have about 5 million people in this area. And so where we live and stuff, even going to Chipotle, that used to be 20 years ago, or going to the certain restaurants in a city called Federal Way, which is right next to Tacoma, that has about 100,000 people in it. It used to be just easy to go in. Now you can't go late at night without somebody accosting you, and there's people that have gotten stabbed right outside the Chipotle now because people just walk by, they have knives, and the cops aren't doing anything about it. So I agree, Colin. We can adapt in different places, but here in Washington, at least, because in July of 2021, the Democrats, because this is a hugely Democrat state, passed bills where the cops couldn't chase people or the cops couldn't arrest somebody unless they absolutely had proof that they could even talk to them. But I mean, if somebody gets chased by a policeman out here, and the guy keeps running away from the cops aren't allowed to chase him. And so there's a lot of things that have changed just because of rules that have been put in place. So it's because of like what Jeannie was saying, where the population has changed here, or where they've changed some things, where things look different, that make it feel sometimes where you're like, I'm not going to go where I used to go over there because, I got to be smart and I don't trust what what's going on over there. And I mean, you just have to be safe. I mean, you just have to be a wise and aware of your surroundings, I guess. Um, when you go to places like that, especially growing up in these big cities. And I know you all live in big cities too. I know you live in one, Colin, and but we'll move on down to oh, hold on. Um, I'm messing up his name here, but it's Pug Pug Political or whatever.
Wait, was
Sorry,
Dylan
Pug.
first?
I messed up his name.
I think Dylan was first, right?
Was he? I didn't
Yeah.
see that. Okay, we can call on. We'll go on Dylan
No,
first.
it's okay. Puglitico can go first, and that's how you pronounce
Puglitico.
it. Yeah,
Oh my
I was just
gosh.
about
Puglitico.
to.
Did I say it right, Dylan? I
No, he's the one that
brutalize names
suggested
all
the
the
name
time.
change. So
Yeah, it used to be Pug Politic or something like that. I don't know. I told him he should
Oh,
name it
okay.
to like because like there's Politico, so I was like you should just name it to Puglitico because it's like it sounds much better, rolls off the tongue.
Okay.
But he can go first.
I was just about to say. I mean, um, like when you're in a big city, you're like, oh well, there's like homeless people downtown. You walk by when you get off the train or when you're parking in the parking garage. Like, oh, it's no big deal. But like here, I mean, Dylan was here just helping you with an event. Thank you, Dylan, again. And he literally had to pick. I conveniently like. Oh, I forgot. Remember, we were all trying to see doing round robin who was going to do it, but we had to pick up a human fucking turd on the sidewalk that you would have to walk past to get into the fucking doorway for a goddamn event. Like, so we had to get gloves and pieces of cardboard to pick up this. It's language. Sorry, to pick up this turd. And and we're not in a bad part of town. We are in a very ritzy part of town. So if you don't control it, like, oh, it's downtown, like people get used to it walking down in the central business district. That's just you get used to it. It will eventually bleed through if you don't have the kind of like police state that you have had in Manhattan under Bloomberg. It will eventually get to the nice neighborhoods. You're gonna have to deal with picking up human turds out in front of your storefront in a very nice part of town. So um I'm not really an advocate for just accepting it as just a part of life in big cities. I don't take that excuse because I used to go to New York all the time under Bloomberg, and my family in Jersey remembered how Giuliani cleaned things up and turned things around. It can be done, so there's really no excuse.
Definitely. No, I got you. Thank you, Puglitico. Dylan.
I was just gonna say, yeah, there have been a lot of policy changes that I think can be implemented. I don't think it's like an end all be all of just it's gonna go to shit and then it's done for. There's a lot of social issues that play into it too. I don't think just throwing money at a problem is necessarily going to solve it. Buying more police doesn't help. Actually understanding the root cause of why people are choosing to live that way, and I mean, state mandated asylums, I mean, objectively an awful thing. But I mean, these mentally ill individuals, it's just torture to just leave them out, in the weather, in the elements, and just expect them to just survive. And you can't help them legally because, like, of how they are. But it's so sad because, I mean, those are human beings, those are people with lives. And to just let them rot away in your cities. It's just so sad. There needs to be something to be able to deal with those kinds of people, and I think the state is sadly the only one with that kind of authority and that kind of ability to deal with it in that manner. To be able to have the legal right to be able to take those people off the streets for public safety.
You bring up a good point, and unfortunately, in this region where I live, their idea is, well, let's just give them drugs safely, and they can do their drugs, and people they're parking their RVs in front of people's homes now, and people are like, they need to move, and the city won't get them out of there, and they're doing drugs outside people's homes and stuff. It's it's bad. It is not good, and I agree that there's a better way to handle it. Okay, let's go with hands here. Patricia, welcome to the Conservative Political Forum.
Yes, thank you for giving me the mic. I just listened to the tail end of people speaking about living in cities and not feeling safe and move to the country is all I want to say to you. I live in the country myself, and I live outside of a village of like 1,400 people, and there's not too many. There's only two cities in my county, And I traveled all over Pennsylvania on my bicycle a few weeks back with a friend of mine. And there is so much open space and beautiful country. You can move any place you want to and get out of your cities and feel safe, because in smaller towns, this is what I want to share with you, is that we look out for each other. We take care of things. We know what's going on. We know what cars go by, who doesn't belong, who is going to come in here and cause harm. And most importantly, they all have guns out here. They have guns, they have rifles, and we will defend ourselves. And all you city folks, get the hell out of the city and go find country living, green acres.
Well, thank you. No, that's a good point. I mean, I used to love the city, and now I am looking forward to moving to a smaller area with less population in the future. So you bring up a good point there. Let's talk. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. So when it comes to crime being like, or just a whole like issue here, I mean, being in Massachusetts, Boston is not terrible. Boston actually has a decent police force. So like the crime's not bad here, as bad as it should be. I mean, there still is to like a little bit since it is an American city, but it's not as bad as like per se New York or San Francisco, Los Angeles, like all the other ones, Chicago. And I mean, I'm lucky that I don't have to see that. I don't have to see a bunch of syringe needles, human feces, or anything along those lines in other American cities, since I don't live, in the state or near them. And it's uh like we need to like they're just we need to tackle crime. Like crime is should be like honestly, crime is like, especially with the midterms, like crime is like a top like prior. I think crime is like in the top three biggest priorities, because you're just seeing like clips. I've seen several clips of like people having their stores robbed, people getting assaulted, people getting shoved on the sidewalks, people getting punched, beaten up, old people, elderly people being assaulted. I mean, it's sickening what you're seeing out here. And you're seeing these people that look like juvenile delinquents getting away with it, getting re-released at, like what seems like a few hours later after they've literally, pretty much committed a, even think anything as much as, like an assault or a felony, or depending on what they did. I mean, the crime is getting out of control, and it lays at the hands of the mayors of the cities, which are Democrat. It lays at some of the Democrat governors, and it could lay back to Joe Biden himself. I don't like to point the finger directly at Democrats on crime, but what we're seeing the management here, especially with the Democrats that are running these cities and these states, they're not taking crime as big of a priority as they should be. And I'm looking at, especially at Joe Biden, it's like, oh, we're just going to ban assault weapons. That'll fix everything. No, it won't. No, it won't. Biden tries to go the easier route by thinking that guns are the issues with crime. No, crime is the issue because it's the people that are being brought up in these broken homes, these people that are living a life in which they probably don't have a father figure, where they don't have a family, and they're being brought up to basically live on the streets and basically get involved in crime, doing drugs and sort of other stuff. And it basically leads them to live that life of crime and have their mental state basically deteriorate. I mean, it's sad, I know, but it's not fair to the other people that have to live their life in fear of these people, assaulting them, or, you know, maybe trying to threaten their own life. I mean, we have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree. And I mean, it's just, I, what else can you do? Garrison, what do you think you can do with that, with what's going on? What's your opinion on some of this
You
being for
just
you
caught.
live?
I'm sorry, you caught me like at a really awkward time. I'm putting up dinner, so can you come back to me real
Ah,
quick?
yeah, yeah. We'll come back to you later. Um, Jeannie and Colin both had their hands up. Colin, do you want to go first? Do you have something that you want to say, or did somebody take your
I don't
thunder?
think I had my hand up. Jeannie can go
Okay, but
first.
all right, go ahead. Wait, Colin. What? You live in a big city. Is it L.A.?
No, San Jose.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I know. My brother used to live there, so that's cool. Um, yeah, I mean how is the homeless situation in San Jose these days?
It could be. Honestly, it could be better. But I think our next mayor, likely to be Cindy Chavez, is going to help things out a bit.
Cool. Cool. Jeannie had her hand up, but it's down, so we'll go to cats.
Oh, did you have something, Jeannie?
Yeah, did you have something, Jeannie?
I'm sorry. Um, I've noticed in at least my town, the homeless, they do things, and stuff. But the biggest problem is the drug crime. And there's a lot of what I call thugs and people that are trying to get, like, I don't know what you call it, street possession. And that's why they're killing people. In my town, it was lucky to have a killing every 4 years. And now, there's one like once a week. And I think it's, people, they're turf wars with the gangs and the cartel people, honestly. It's not the homeless doing it, at least not in the neighborhoods I know about. And if we close the border and allowed less of this coming into the United States, I think it would do a very huge change in the amount of drugs coming in and gangs and the cartel movement. Because it's here. You'd have to be in denial not to realize that this uptick in crime has to do. It's not the homeless sitting there, shooting people. It's just not.
Yeah, definitely. There is though in our cities, Jeannie, the homeless drug addicts that are stealing uh for their drugs and they're stabbing there are some of them that are stabbing people, but there's also the gang wars like you're talking about. And you're right. We used to not have these killings, and now this year the Tacoma region is becoming like Chicago. There's like murders every day. It's awful, and the only way you could change that is to change what you're doing in this state that is not working. Becky, welcome to the Conservative Political Forum, and go ahead.
Hello, hello. How are y'all tonight? With that being said, I'm just doing my paperwork here, doing all my books while I'm listening to y'all, and I just had to chime in a little bit here quick. So the whole crime thing in cities, because I lived in central Iowa for 10 years in the Des Moines metro area, and I tell you what, there there is a Walmart on Southeast 14th and South Central or Des Moines that honestly, unless you went there at like 8 o'clock in the morning, you did not want to go there alone. It was that bad. They actually had a police presence there from 9 to like overnight until like I don't know, like probably 6 o'clock in the morning. There was always a police or two, sometimes three cars in that parking lot at any given time. Kind of was scary actually. So with that being said, I moved to the West Des Moines area where, I mean, the most thing you really had to worry about was, domestic things or bar fights. I mean, there really wasn't a violent area. But I've had the privilege though of living literally all over the United States, in California, Arizona, Washington State, which is why I'm still which is why I'm still a Seahawks fan despite Russell Wilson leaving. Even the Pennsylvania area, and like Philadelphia. Heck, my mom was born in DC. I found my way to South Dakota in '97. Then I moved to Iowa for 10 years and came back last year. So living in South Dakota, I don't get a lot of that, what you guys experience. Yeah, there's crime, don't get me wrong, but I also live in a suburb of a bigger city. So I live in the country, which is kind of nice. But I don't experience some of the kinds of things that you guys do. I don't really feel afraid when I go somewhere. I haven't had that feeling for a long time. In fact, I felt more afraid going home at one point in my life, and I don't have to deal with that anymore. Oh, which is why I'm still single 6 years later. So I feel bad for those of you that can't enjoy where they live, because I love where I live. I mean, I drive outside of city limits, and I'm literally in God's country with farmland and fields and wildlife. Although I'm very happy when I see a dead raccoon on the side of the road, I will tell you that. No, but seriously, I feel for you guys. I mean, I feel blessed with where I'm at, which is why I'm trying to get y'all to move out here. Plus, we got a great governor. All right, back to y'all.
Well, thank you, and I agree that, some of it is it be nice to live in a smaller area and have less of that, but something's got to be done for the city people, because what they're doing to the inner city there are people that love the city, there are people that love city life, and some of the policies have to change. I mean, you have to have police. I agree with Let's Talk. Boston and Seattle are a good example. They're about the same size, exactly. But Boston has triple the cops that Seattle has, because Boston doesn't try to defund their police. Well, Seattle did that, and all the cops have decided to leave, and the force continues to leave. So, and what Patricia said down there when she came up, which thank you for speaking when you did, Patricia. I don't know if you can hear us down there or not, but she said, "Hey, move to the country," like you were saying, Becky. She was like, "Yeah, move, get away." And I plan to get away from the big city at some point. I used to love it, but I'll still, like I'll still be a Seahawks fan. I'll still be a Huskies fan. So then I can still razz Nikki about that stuff. But even though we won't be in the same division anymore after this year, um, but yeah, I mean, you have to feel for the people that will never ever have that chance to move, though. Not just the ones that, like, I will move someday to a smaller city, but there are people that will never do it. They just can't. They can't afford it. They don't know how to get themselves to be able to do it. And so, Cats, you've been patient. Now it is your turn.
All right. Well, as far as like solutions go, you got to get rid of these liberal DAs because they're the ones that are basically releasing these criminals to go back out and do whatever, kill somebody else, whatever crap's happening. But then you've got, I'm sorry, but every time I read one of these idiotic laws that are passed, they're always introduced by Democrat senators. It's like, why? They don't make any sense. I don't know if any of you read the one that is going to go into effect in January in Illinois. It's like, holy guacamole. They have the nerve to call it the Safety Act. It's like, the safety for who? The criminals? It's like, oh my word, crazy. So you got all these dumb laws that protect the criminals. You got liberal DAs protecting the criminals. You got the police force defunded, demoralized. You've got politicians and other people kind of lumping on them and keeping this narrative going of, cops equals bad. I mean, sure, just like any profession, yeah, there's going to be some bad apples, but as far as a whole goes, you can't really say cops are bad. And, then you have Antifa and Black Lives Matter zealots running wild, and nothing ever happens to them. They're not declared to be domestic terrorists ever. It's like, why? They've, done what, billions of dollars of property damage, injured over 1,000 people, killed at least a dozen or more people. And, for the most part, nothing much happens to them. So you've got to tackle this and just start to chip away at these problems if you want things to get at least partially restored.
Definitely. No, that's true. I agree. Patricia, go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to, oh, first of all, Cats, I just followed you. I love your voice, first of all. And I like your
Thank
little,
you.
yeah. And anyways, thank you I appreciate what you had to say. Um, that's one of the things that did happen in many of the major cities is that this whole thing about defunding the police, it actually was a basic kick in the ass. To make a phrase, it kicked everybody in the ass because then all of a sudden there's no one to call. And there are duplicitous officers. We have corruption in our law enforcement, but for the most part, I think they are good. But anyways, I would like to address Dylan when he talks about people who live in cities that don't have the means to move. I'm third generation Irish, and I've heard the stories about my family, and even on the other side, German family, coming across with no money, fleeing the potato famine in Ireland, and they had to make passage, and they traveled on ships, and some of them died. So, anyways, there are no excuses. If you want to move, save up your freaking money. I don't care if you're getting it from the government or whatever. Save your money up. Shut your TV off. Save your money. Don't spend it on cell phones and all sorts of stuff that people waste their money on. $8 cappuccinos. Save your money up, and you can move to any place in the country, for crying out loud. We have to stop making excuses for people that refuse to leave a place that is enslaving them. If they want to leave, they will find a means to leave. We have all sorts of people all across the country, for the last 100 years, they found their way across continents to get here. So if they really truly want to get a better life and come into a smaller community and away from the cities, there is a way and a means to do it. But they have to work, they have to save up, and they can definitely do it.
And
So
they have to have the desire, right, Patricia, like to really
yes,
want to do it.
yes. But the thing is, the desire comes with saving up the finances and just doing it. And then when you come to these smaller communities, here's my greatest advice. When you come to these smaller communities, get involved with your local government and don't try to turn us into New York City, because we don't want you here then. Because you need to come here and be cohesive. We accept all sorts of folks here in my community, but don't come here and pull all this liberal crap in their communities, because they will blow you out of town. So that's it. That's my advice for tonight.
Thank you, Patricia. Appreciate that. We are going to be moving into the next segment, which Garrison has a really good topic coming up. So, Nikki, make it quick if you can, buddy. And then so we can go on to the Garrison's got a good topic I really want us to get into. I think it's very important. And then Katz will read the guidelines and then Garrison will take over. So, go ahead, Nikki.
Sure. I'll just say this. Most of the people who are not moving, who can't afford to move, are people who are in small town America and who don't have the money to leave their families behind, who have support networks and that kind of thing. You're still, to this day, seeing outmigration from most parts of small town America. There are some communities people are moving to, like Austin, and Dallas and stuff like that. But like the liberals are not the one invading small town like Oklahoma. What's primarily happening overall is people are moving from where Garrison lives to where I live. And the reason they're not, if they don't, is not because they might not want to get out of certain places, but because it's really hard if you have to leave your whole family behind, and if you're making $10 an hour, there's no amount of lattes that you already probably aren't purchasing that can fund first and last month's rent in a new city where you're not going to have any support network. I see new people move to Denver all the time, and it is a scary freaking prospect if you don't know anybody there, if your family's far away, if you haven't traveled very much. Like, yes, people make their way across the country, but like let's not ignore what it takes for a 19-year-old kid with no support network to make it in a place that's unfamiliar to them. That's all.
And let's face it, Denver's a shithole. I've been there several times.
Yeah.
So I hate Denver, and it's
Trying to
not
get
because
them.
I have my personal reasons why I hate the state of Colorado, but we can talk about that another day. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying though. You're saying the bigger cities, some people make more money sometimes and are able to move. Is that one of the things you're saying, Nikki?
No, I'm saying that, most of the net migration in this country is still from small towns and things like that where people don't have opportunity to, larger metropolitan areas where young people do have opportunity. And I'm saying that the people who, she makes it out to be that all you have to do is, don't eat the avocado toast, don't, don't go get your extra lattes. I'm sorry. There are a lot, most of the people who are living in middle America are making $7 an hour. And it's like, you want to try to save for $1,000 first, for deposit plus first and last, in order to be able to move to a big city plus moving expenses. That is expensive. That is really expensive. And it is not surprising to me. Again, on top of that, good luck. You're moving to somewhere where you don't know anybody, where it's you might be unfamiliar with what's around you. So I just didn't like the way that she seemed to be kind of crapping on young.
Hey, Dylan, right now there are like food joints right now that are paying $17, $18 an hour. Right here in a small town, very small college town. That's what they're paying. So, and the housing here is way less. Like, I've been to Denver. I did like Denver. I'm like, whoever said they didn't like Denver, I did. I explored it when my son lived there with his wife at the time, but they're still together. But they were just not married yet. But I was out there. I liked Denver. It was okay. I thought it was kind of like a little, I don't know, too upscale for me because I live in a small town. But I'm trying to say to you, Dylan, and I don't want to sound like an
That's
elitist.
Nikki, by the way, Patricia, not Dylan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyways, Nikki, here's the thing. Um, in this small town here, the fast food places are paying 15 to $18 an hour. The housing is you can get a house here for $150,000 in decent shape. And all I'm saying is if people are sick of New York City or Denver or many other places, there is opportunity in many small towns just like this. And we are going through a whole I've lived here for 40 years in this town, almost 40 years. And I'm seeing a whole metamorphosis happening in this town. And there is opportunity for people. And I've traveled across Ohio and Pennsylvania. There are opportunities for people to start businesses. And one of the things I think is really important that's happening is, and I hope that many of the corporate restaurants that they shut down, we're seeing little businesses starting up. Somebody who's doing like a cat hotel for people that want to store their cats when they go away. There's all sorts of opportunities in small towns. There is cheaper housing, and you can live here more cheaply than in like Raleigh, North Carolina, where my one daughter lives, or Denver. So there are opportunities, but these people need to like think about their resources, save up your money, and make sure you have enough money for a down payment. But you can basically get into some beautiful homes here for 150 grand. Truly beautiful homes.
Thank you. I will give a couple final thoughts to Dylan and Patriot, and then we are actually going to move on from this subject. I know it's been popular, but I don't like to cut into other people's time. So Dylan, go ahead, and then Patriot.
Okay, thank you. I don't mean to interrupt into Garison's time. I'm very sure I'll enjoy it. I will play devil's advocate here and actually agree with Nikki on quite a few things, which I did not think I would have 2 weeks ago. But there are amenities to blue states that I believe that people do not holistically view when considering moving. It is very difficult, and sure, maybe a single fast food restaurant is paying $18, $19 an hour, but that shouldn't be your end-all be-all. And a lot of these small towns don't have developed industry, they don't have office complexes, they don't have any of the draw or amenity that larger major cities do. And there's a reason that cities have been growing since, their initial founding. Sure, you can move to a cheaper cost of living, but the cheaper cost of living is reflecting the average median household income. So I don't necessarily think it's for everyone. And you also have to consider that there are people who do want to move to the city despite all of its negatives because the positives do outweigh them. And if someone is happy living that way of life, I don't think that necessarily you should egg them on to, do something that someone else personally feels is better. I have this conversation all the time with libertarians who, for the life of me, I will never understand why, are so divine on property rights. Not everyone wants to homestead. Not everyone wants to own a home. Some people are perfectly happy in a 7 by 10 apartment complex. Um, it's not necessarily ideal for everyone, but it is their way of life. And it is really difficult to move. I was actually considering that a couple months back. Being 20, it is not an easy task to pick up everything you have and move somewhere by yourself without knowing anyone and leaving your family behind. Especially if you don't have an education, which a lot of small towns, they don't have very high college education rates, especially in places like, sorry, Garrison, like Oklahoma or Kansas or any of these other places where you might have those small towns of 5 to 7,000 people. Maybe there's a local community college, but most of those people are going to be replacing their parents in those local communities, or they're going to leave after they die. So it's definitely a very large change, and I think the amenities that a lot of blue states do provide and major cities have, with things being closer, more accessible, different levels of, I mean, it's odd, but trauma centers for hospitals for critical injuries, like there are things that come along with making the move, and you have to accept the positives and the negatives to live in that kind of society, which, I mean, I personally don't like the look of cities, but there is a draw, and I can understand both perspectives.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Dylan,
Hey,
I live in a university town, and there's a SUNY right here. It is a small town. There is a lot of opportunity for small businesses. So, I disagree with you in certain aspects, and that's fine. But there are many opportunities, especially in university communities, for small businesses, whether it's like dog grooming, hair cutting. This whole area thrives on small businesses, and this is the true background of America is small businesses. So, people who want to move out of the city, there are many opportunities, in particular in university towns, because they want services.
thank you. All right, we are going to finish this up. Patriot Nellie Mack, if you have something to say. Um,
Sure, thank you. I agree with Patricia 100%. My family, my husband and I, and our 2-year-old son moved from New York to Seattle, and Seattle was a small town at the time. How about that? And I continued my education here in Seattle, and it was a great opportunity. We were able to buy a house, and we just sold our house after growing up our family. We have 2 sons, and um, it was a great opportunity. And it's kind of like I'm tired of hearing the whining and complaining. Either you know, do it or don't, and sit there and stew. That's all I have to say. Bye.
Definitely. No, that's a good point. I mean, people they'll do it, people have to do what they've got to do. I have goals for my future, and I'm going to move to a place that most people probably wouldn't want to move to. But that's because my wife and I, we have well, we're going to do what we're going to do. I mean, you're right. People have to do what you said, Patriot. They've got to, either they can complain about it and not do anything. And I know people that do. They
I I
complain.
I moved. I have an identical twin sister. I have my whole family. So, I have family that never left New York. They never stepped foot out of New York State, which was kind of amazing. And I moved cross country to Seattle, and it's like, whatever happened to Arlene? That's me. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we did it. We made it. We have our family. We're fine. We did it. We
Yeah.
survived. How about that?
That's really good. And I want to thank everyone for this topic. I really enjoyed Nikki and Colin's take on it too. And, you all are amazing. You make the Conservative Political Forum fun. And I appreciate every single one of you and your perspectives. So thank you so much. And with that, uh, after I heap a bunch of praise on Garrison, Katz will do the guidelines and Garrison will take over. I'm excited for his topic because I think it's very important. In the coming weeks, we may have a problem. So, but I'll let him bring it up. But with that, Garrison is our third co-host and he's become a very good friend to me. I text him often and I appreciate him a lot. So, Garrison, he will be probably co-hosting more often when he can, and I really am thankful for that. And Katz is too, I believe. But Katz, go ahead and do the guidelines, and let's give Garrison the ball to run with it for another hour.
All right, you got it. Welcome everyone to the Conservative Political Forum. Just a quick note about cats. We were talking earlier. 3 or 4 years running, the Ragdoll has been the top breed according to the CFA. But that little fun tidbit. All right, so the guidelines. As freedom thinkers in the Conservative Political Forum, we believe in and value our constitutional rights. We also recognize that even amongst ourselves, we are going to have varied opinions. This forum is a safe place for everyone. We don't tolerate personal attacks. We don't do or allow raised voices. We ask that you are considerate of persons who prefer not to hear profanity. Please be self-aware of your mic time. We want to make sure everyone who wants to contribute to a particular topic is able to. And with that, take it away, Garrison.
Thank you, Katz. What I wanted to talk about tonight is that within less than 24 hours, the American railroads are likely to be grounded to a halt. It's a very scary situation that will cost America over $2 billion per day. I can go into all the legislative backgrounds. I kind of did a deep dive on this, but uh, to see what it actually impacts, Amtrak has stopped cross country commuters. Now, the Northeast corridor is still working, but for the rest of the country, commuter trains have already stopped, and they've stopped hazardous material shipments to not leave them stranded halfway through because there has been a breakdown between labor and management. And if you haven't heard of this topic so far, it's about to really impact you. If you don't realize how much America still relies on rail, that's unfortunate because it is a huge portion of our economy that's going to greatly impact society. And from the looks of it, after Senator Sanders today blocked the Richard Burr um, bill to try to force this deal through, um, it looks like it's not going to go through Congress. So I wanted to hear everyone's thoughts. I can give a little bit more background information if anyone has any questions about it. I know Colin already messaged me about this, and Nikki was questioning me about it earlier. So, does anyone have any thoughts on the union versus railroad management today?
What's the state of the negotiations currently?
It's still deadlocked. It looks like management is just hoping that Congress will take up the. So the weird thing about the railroads is kind of a quirk in American history in which Congress has the authority to force the railroads and the unions into a compromise. And so about a month ago, the President's Emergency Board, PEB, struck a deal as like a mediator or as like an arbitrator for them. Uh, and then they had 30 days to come to an agreement whether they would accept the deal. The management, the owners, said yes, we want it, and the workers refused. The union refused the deal, and so they had the 30 days negotiation, which ends on Friday, to accept the PB's mediated deal. And it's at a deadlock, and the owners are just hoping that Congress will step in. Because of that quirk, Congress has the authority to force the deal into happening. And so, if the Burr Wicker measure is passed, then it would force the agreement. But when Senator Sanders blocked unanimous consent today,
Now
that
they can't
House
do that,
voted no.
right?
What do you mean?
With Sanders blocking it, now they can't do it, right?
Well, so Schumer could still take it to the floor if he wants to. It doesn't look like he's going to, and then it would require a 60 vote to pass the filibuster. I wasn't looking at hands. I think Colin may have been up first. Go ahead, Colin.
Actually, Dylan was first.
Okay, sorry, Dylan.
You know what? Let the kids speak. Let Colin go first. I don't mind waiting.
Actually, no, I want Dylan to go first.
Okay, you little shit. I mean, my bad. So yeah, no, rail is definitely incredibly important. I have a quick question. Does this affect inner city travel on light rail, like Chicago or New York City or any other inner city infrastructure for light rail?
So I can answer for Chicago. I think they had 9 out of 11 of the light rails being threatened to be closed. And so, yes, if it's not publicly owned, like the ones in the Northeast Corridor, and a member of the union, which almost all of them are, like 9 out of the 11 in Chicago, it will impact that. A greater impact, though, is the oil that is transported through the rails, and agriculture, which is going to take a huge blow because so much of our grain and other agricultural products are transported through the railways, and it will be left just to rot on the farms, or we don't have the trucking infrastructure to get them all on trucks and drive them there. So it's kind of at a deadlock.
Yeah, we have that here in California. There's a main rail line that runs up the 99 that takes grain and dairy and all those different products up and down the state. So, yeah, no, it's not going to just have economic impacts of, stopping bulk goods shipments like that, but also inner city travel. A lot of people who rely on those rail lines to get across town for work, for business, for school, that's going to it's going to impact them as well, which I didn't consider till just now. Um, that's going to take a very large toll on city infrastructure, which might be good for places or apps, I guess, like Uber, and any remaining taxi services, but that's going to be detrimental. And yeah, no, this would be a great time to have more oil pipelines, and I think someone might get quite a bit of flack for that. It's a very interesting thing for oil specifically that you've mentioned. The same people who, pushed for, oh God, the Keystone Pipeline to be canceled. Same people who own stocks in the rail companies and in those export companies for oil. I mean, supply and demand, that oil is going to get to the end product one way or another. It's either going to come by rail or by pipe. And I think that's going to be causing a lot of issues with gas prices, especially if places can see the forecast that, they're not going to be finding a resolution. I think you're going to see prices really spike on that. Places that are close enough to a major pipeline that can do it by truck are probably going to, but for rails, that's going to be incredibly detrimental. And one last thing about the hazardous material shipments, that's normally nuclear. There are a few others, biohazardous transports, but not much of that's done by rail unless it's massive, which can put those shipments in quite a bit of danger. I'm glad they stopped them, but that is another aspect that also needs to be considered, especially with spent nuclear fuel. and any contaminated waste. That's going to be a lot of headaches for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm glad they stopped them because it would be better to have them contained at the original port than stranded halfway through. I watched an interview by a Chicagoan earlier today where he said, I take the train, it takes me 30 minutes. If I try to drive, it usually takes me 2 hours. And I was laughing because, oh, you think it takes you 2 hours now? Just wait till everyone who takes the train normally has to drive. It's going to be congestion out the wazoo. Colin, your hand's up.
This topic just came out of nowhere. I was standing in line to get lunch today, and then all of a sudden, I get like 50 notifications about this, and I'm like, "Oh shit! What the frick is this?" Sorry for the swear word. But I don't think we realize how big of a deal trains are in our economy, and this is going to have a major economic impact. We're gonna see prices rise more, unfortunately, and we're gonna see this. Unfortunately, this is probably gonna get skewed out for a while this if we don't come to a deal. And I would like to thank Garrison for helping me get up to speed on this issue during our last DM session. You've really made me want to ride a train, and this is a great topic, Garrison.
I have never ridden on a train, but I really want to. I really wish we had an infrastructure like other continents have. Nikki, your hand's up next.
Yeah. So this is one of those fun things that I think people who don't follow like union negotiations and who don't follow like major infrastructure negotiations may be looking at this slightly differently than those of us who've been through this before and have sort of seen what happened with like the MTA strike about a decade ago, and a handful of other. It is exceedingly rare. It is exceedingly rare for these sorts of labor disputes to actually become like full on strikes. And the reason why is very simple. People people are very friendly toward labor and toward reasonable labor requests, um, when they're not being disrupted. And they become really unfriendly really fast, once those disruptions start to take place. And labor leaders know that. They've seen it happen with other labor unions that chose to like shut down the MTA and things like that. And so, you know, fortunately, what they're asking for is not all of that big of a deal. Like, they're really not. If you look at the amount of money in terms of the time off costs that they want, um, you know, most of the unions have either come to the table or are still negotiating at this point. Only one small union with 5,000 workers has said officially, we are going to reject the deal that was on the table. Um,
Where are you getting that stats? Because I have that 8 unions have agreed, but the the biggest unions, the uh, SALT U and the PLEC, I
yep.
think are the names, are the 2 holdouts, and that accounts for over 60,000 workers.
It
The majority.
just happened like while we were on this space. So let me send you the article that I had this from.
Okay, well, yeah, if it's breaking news, I haven't heard of it yet, which
Yeah,
is great news for our economy and for
yeah.
America.
So it sounds like there's still unions at the negotiating table. There's some that have accepted, but it's not as dire, I think, as it sounds, because it seems like they are definitely still at the let's make noise and make this look really bad phase of union negotiations, not at the, let's we are officially going to go on strike, or all hope has been lost kind of thing. So
Did the bosses cave or did the employees? I mean, this is
um
literally breaking, I take it.
it looks like it's a bit of, and again, I wouldn't phrase it as like, it seems like it's some of the unions have sort of said, okay, the deal, because what it is that there was a deal that the negotiators put forward, basically the people, the board that is the federal board put forward, and the some of the unions have agreed to it and some of them have not yet.
So
uh,
the PEB, the Presidential Emergency Board, is what it's
yeah,
called.
basically they came up with a deal, and it sounds like some of the unions are on board and some of them are still pushing for a slightly better offer. And I think it's close enough that you'll get a deal. I don't think they're so far apart that some of these unions would be willing to, because I mean, yeah, this would like, here's the thing: they may not have the votes right this second to put uh to put a stop to the thing. Um, but they would have, like, there's no question in my mind that there's 60 votes to pass a law if there's even a smell that a strike might actually happen. Not that they're negotiating, but like that it actually might happen. I think you'd get 40 Democrats and 50 Republicans voting to end a strike. No question in my mind, and I think Biden would sign it. But until that actually seems like it is happening, Democrats are going to stand by the union. So they're going to try to give them as much negotiating leverage as possible, and they're going to tell them behind the scenes that if you don't make a deal, we're going to step in. Um, and the railroads know that, and the unions know that. They all want to look good while they're going through this process. But this is definitely the type of deal that where a deal gets made, because it would be disastrous for the Democrats if there wasn't a deal. It'd be disastrous for the unions if there wasn't a deal, and it would be disastrous for the railroads if there wasn't a deal. So everyone has a massive incentive to make a deal.
Well, so they have about 24 hours, maybe like 22, whatever time it is on the East Coast, to come up with that deal.
They could just postpone.
So
they could just say we're going to keep operating, because they've been operating without a contract for 3 years.
The union could, but I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they will. The PB, the Presidential Emergency Board, arbitrated a 24% increase in salary applied retroactively to 2022, plus a $1,000 bonus in paid leave, in addition to if you already had any paid leave. But that wasn't enough for the union. And so it seems like a pretty fair deal to me, to be honest. The union says that the $1,000 bonus still doesn't count for any sick days. So, like, if they get sick, it's still not paid, but it's paid up front with a $1,000 bonus. But they can get points for missing work, which the bosses say, well, we can't operate, moving massive cargo across the country without having reliable employees. And if they're sick, that's kind of their argument. Like, if they're sick, so be it, which is a terrible thing, but like, so be it. We still have to move these shipments, and we're going to give them points and then go to the next person. And if you accumulate so many points, you'll get fired. So the union was saying, we don't want to have points if we're sick. And then the bosses said, well, instead of paid sick leave, we'll just give you $1,000 up front. That way, if you're just, hungover from the weekend, you won't call in sick, because it's not officially paid sick leave, I take it. Kind of like a moral hazard argument. And then the unions were also really pushing back on a lot of the length of on-call, where they would be on call for like 14 days to go. They had 90 minutes to get to the station and work the trains. Patriot, your hands up.
Oh yeah, thank you. I enjoyed listening to all this. It seems like the railroad is the forgotten transportation unit in the United States. Back in February, I was traveling with a friend. We needed to go from Seattle. Well, we went from Seattle to Chicago, and then our flight from Chicago to Rochester, New York, was canceled because of the storm. And my friend went running around trying to find another airline, and I quickly went to Amtrak and thought, yeah, if Alaska Airline wasn't going to fly to Rochester, I don't want to fly to Rochester on any other airline. And so we decided to take the train, and it got us there in time to do what we needed to do. But it was just really, really interesting because I don't think many people this day and age travel Amtrak. And, it might be relegated to just moving commodities, but it was an interesting trip and I really enjoyed it. And I was thinking about taking a ride from Seattle to San Diego when my son and his wife had my second granddaughter. But it's really something to think about because it's nobody thinks of it. They think of a plane. So just very interesting. And most of those people that that were working on the train, their parents before them worked on the train. It was very, very interesting. So it seemed like it's like it was just very interesting. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, Nikki, go ahead.
So yeah, I think that like this is one of those things where we rely on these companies to run the American economy. We obviously should be taking care of workers. I don't. We've had a number of rail accidents in this country from people who are driving trains, when they were dead tired, from people who were, having to be on duty for way too long. Um, you know, we're making these people work more arduous hours than we do surgeons, and we're not paying them nearly as well, and we're putting them in command of a multi-ton vehicle that can, derail and kill people. And so, I understand why the railroads don't want to spend more money, and they make a decently healthy profit. They can afford to pay for more sick leave, which functionally means they can afford to pay for more people. They can hire more people so that they don't need to ask so much of the people that they do have on staff. They can have more slack in the system so that it's less likely that a train will be delayed or something just because somebody gets sick. And I think as capitalists today, we need to do a better job of that. One of the reasons why we have the supply chain issues that we have right now is because companies tried to run so lean and so efficiently that when hiccups happened, when people got sick because of COVID, when demand shifted up unexpectedly, they were caught flat-footed, and airlines were not able to hire the additional pilots that they needed quickly, because it turns out it's really hard to get new pilots in this day and age because we aren't making as many pilots today as we were previously, because we're doing a bunch of drone pilots basically instead of doing a bunch more Top Gun people, and that's primarily where we get commercial airline pilots from. So like I think that this is just another example of corporate America trying to run the most efficient operation it possibly can and squeeze every last dollar out of the operation that it's running. And I get that. I understand the value of running efficiently. But when you're talking about a transportation network that is the bedrock of the American economy, when you're talking about how people get their grain to market, when you're talking about how we get oil from one place to another, you know, we have a responsibility to make that transportation network robust. And that means paying enough people so that if somebody gets sick, you're not asking somebody with the flu or worse to be driving a 100-ton train?
Senator Sanders today, in his objection, stated that the rail industry made $20 billion in profits, and he listed off the top three CEOs of the big three railways at 16, 17, and $20 million. If they gave 15 days of paid sick leave, it would cost the industry $688 million per year. And he pointed out that they gave 18 billion. I'm sorry. Yeah, 18 billion of stock buybacks last year. So it kind of bolsters your argument, and I see that. But on the other side, um, yes, I think you make a good point that COVID really disrupted the industry in general. And they're offering a 25% increase to an already pretty inflated salary. That's also going to apply retroactively to 2020 and $1,000 bonus to account for the sick leave that they're requesting. So instead of 15 days paid sick leave, we'll just give everyone $1,000 to avoid the moral hazard of people calling in sick when they're really not. Dylan, your hands up. Go ahead.
Yes. I think this is one of the issues that, I mean, it's literally in my bio about loving trains, and I know I've talked to Nikki about this before. Trains are really one of those technologies that is so crucial yet forgotten in its role, and I think that the one place that automation would be the most beneficial is to railroads. Forget self-driving cars, that's just so stupid, like induced demand. I could go on about that for hours. Automated trains are far easier to do. A lot of Europe has that. They have a lot more developed infrastructure specifically for rail networks, even though they all use different gauges and different systems, and it's an entire mess with the EU. We could standardize it here within the United States, and so the issues of skilled laborers for train driving doesn't need to be. It can literally be model trains, but much larger and remote controlled. Obviously, you have people on board for safety because they are, in some cases, millions, well, probably not millions, but thousands of tons of worth the train. But a lot of that skilled labor does come down to, knowing regulations, having safety, people unloading and loading these trains. I think that they could definitely scale back the number of workers, which might actually be counterproductive to the argument. If it costs more to keep those people employed when they can just automate them out, I think you might see that come and bite them in the ass here in, oh, my apologies, here in a few years when that technology does make its way through. Now, unions do normally fight pretty hard to avoid automation, but it's a very good possibility. Now, for paid sick leave and stuff like that, I mean, it's almost universal within the United States now for paid sick leave. And again, you don't want sick people driving trains. You don't want people who are impaired operating that heavy of equipment. So there's definitely an argument there to be made. I just don't think that if they're going to try and push this very far, again, it's essentially it's in everyone's best interest to make oh my god, my tongue today, an agreement. So I think they are probably going to end up accepting that begrudgingly, but accepting it because I mean that they do make a lot of money. I just looked up their salary, and that is for the average union worker, that is a lot of money, especially for what the job entails.
And as we know, industry, when labor overcharges the price compared to automation, automation always ends up winning. We could be Luddites, but they never end up winning in the end. Patriot, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just really taken by the people that they give up their family life to be on a train. It's very interesting, and this was just one particular time that I took a train, and trains are going on all the time. People are away from their families all the time. So it's kind of like they deserve what they can negotiate, to the best of their ability. Why not? It quietly happens. we don't hear about it. We only hear about the negative. So it's just very interesting. I was really taken by it.
Right. But if they negotiate too harshly, Dylan makes a great point that automation can just replace them at a value.
You might think so, but I don't think so. I don't agree. So it's just very, very interesting that there's, you know, yeah,
Yeah, well,
I just disagree.
well, carriage workers also disagreed until the automobile came along, and then they get put out of business. Factories
What's a carriage
Detroit,
worker?
the people who drive horses,
A
like
carriage worker? Oh,
yeah,
I didn't
um,
know.
or like
Ah,
factory workers in Detroit also disagreed until a robot came
mm.
in and replaced all of them. I mean, that's kind of just been the current trend since the
Well, that's
Industrial
kind
Revolution.
of interesting because, trains are a little bit different. I think that maybe there should be a study in trains because it's not so, you know, clear cut.
I mean, the DC
Dylan,
Metro system is
Dylan, go ahead.
automated. May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dylan had his hand up first.
It's okay. Nikki can speak. I'll go after.
Appreciate that. Um, it's the nice thing about being old. The youngins are polite. But yeah, I mean, there are plenty of automated railroad systems, and to use one of my favorite examples of the switch to automation, um, Americans were petrified of the idea of automatic elevators in the U.S. Going back to basically the invention of the elevator. And for years after automatic elevators were first,
When
in the
when
1910s,
was when
what
was
you
the invention of the elevators?
elevators were invented in the late 1800s.
All
Automatic
right.
elevators were invented in
Long
the
before
early
my time, long
Yes,
before your
automatic
time.
elevators were invented in the early 1900s, like
Hmm.
1910, 1915. They were
Yeah.
not commonly used until the 1950s because people refused to use them to get into an elevator without a person standing there to press the buttons. What changed, and this is to Garrison's point exactly, it's one of my absolute favorite stories, was an elevator operator strike in
It's
New
an
York
extreme
City
example. Yeah.
in
Uh-huh.
1954, I want to say is what it was. The entire elevator operators went on strike, and suddenly all the elevator companies, all the buildings that had these elevators, realized, oh well, maybe we should put in automatic elevators so that we don't have to deal with this bullshit. And the entire city basically switched in a very short period of time. So I think that we could totally automate most of the light rail systems
No,
in
this is
large
not
parts of the
light. This
U.S.
is not light rail.
and we could
This is
automate a
across the
significant
United
amount of,
States.
well, some of this is heavy rail that shares uh, it's commuter rail is what I mean, like the ones in Chicago. So there are absolutely things that if these people went out, let me put it this way: if these people went on strike or they were all shot tomorrow, the entire staff of everybody who could man a railroad, we would find ways to automate a lot of these systems because we would have to, and because we have the capability to do that if we need to. So I actually agree completely with Garrison that, automation's a good thing. Generally speaking, automation makes things faster, easier, better. And if we can make more of these railroads run with fewer people running them, that's great.
Sure, that would be great, but this is not light rail. It's not going from point A in Seattle to point B in Seattle. It's not light rail. It's different. Anyway, I think we should do a study on it.
Uh,
Part part of the forum's guidelines are to please be respectful of each other's time and try not to talk over each other. Thank you for both of those comments. Dylan, your hand was up next.
yeah. So this is like again one of my favorite topics. So I think the distinction there is between like a luxury rail line, because there is one that runs from Anchorage to Wasilla in Alaska that I've taken before. Beautiful, beautiful rail line, very scenic. That is different from something like Amtrak, which don't even get me started on Amtrak. American rail infrastructure outside of major cities is awful. Amtrak and the way that they operate is understandable yet tragic because they do share the same infrastructure with the main railroad companies. So freight trains take priority over Amtrak, which is why it's so godly inefficient. And there aren't that many alternatives to it. Actually, it doesn't even turn positive. Most of the Western United States does not turn positive for that agency. Only the Northeast corridor really operates with any net profit, and that's because there is a little bit of private rail in there, so it takes priority. Um, Across the United States, freight trains, on average, are not very difficult to operate. It's the same thing with long-range trucking, and we already see that automation coming in because truck drivers, they do cost quite a bit, and with the scale and scope of our civilization increasing in size, which this goes back to the National Highway Project with Eisenhower, there has been attempts to replace truck drivers ever since. And now you have places like Tesla trying to already automate that. Trains are already automated. Large bulk freight trains already automated. No one, if you had the opportunity to automate out a train route across the middle of the country, you would, because it's like, wait, what are you going to hit? Deer? You just put one of the cow scoops on the front of a train, which they already do. It's not like it's going to hit anybody. You could have somebody on for the sake of safety, but you can also put LiDAR, which is a low range altitude radar to detect foreign objects. You can program computers to be smart about it. You can put cameras on there, and you can have it with what is that thing that Elon has now? Starlink? A Starlink on the train so that somebody's watching it as it goes and then hit an emergency stop. There are plenty of things that you can do to simplify the process and completely remove these people. And I think the dinosaur just coughed. These unions are kind of showing their age in that respect, that while their jobs are important and vital, we may have already missed the opportunity, or they have already missed the opportunity that they aren't needed. A lot of rail lines in Europe already are automated. The subways in New York City, for the most part, are automated. A lot of light rail, intercity rail, automated. Trams, automated. The technology exists. There's half a dozen systems across the EU alone that work like that. They are able to detect people on the rails, foreign objects. They're able to coordinate. It's honestly a much better centralized system, and especially for the United States, with the amount of rail that we do use for bulk good transit that isn't done by pipes, it's very, very efficient and it's very effective. And again, I think the dinosaur just coughed. I think these people have accidentally spelt their death, especially if the costs, 24% to any pay raise is an insane amount, especially applied retroactively for a lot of these people who have been working really hard with COVID and trying to make up the difference from the East Coast and West Coast, from the shipping ports and the containers that build off of Long Beach. The amount of trucking and the amount of trains that have taken different containers, that's a lot of money, especially with how many people are in the industry. And if all the unions are agreeing to that, it's an astronomical amount of money, and I can guarantee you they will take the cheaper alternative, which is almost always automation. So these people have spelt their own death by accident, but through greed.
Ricardo, your hands up, and then Patriot.
Wow, I love all the information. I just thought I'd preface this with by saying I really appreciate all the information that y'all have. It's very informative, very enlightening. Also, I guess this would be a general question, but mostly for Dylan, perhaps Nikki. The question would be, I posted at the top there, 3.5 million decent paying jobs, specifically trucking jobs, in the United States. Like you mentioned, Dylan, would be potentially wiped out by automation. Is that a good thing? I personally don't think it is. It might be inevitable, but where will those truckers begin to work? You know what I mean? That's a tough one.
I think there was the joke last year, learn to code. That's the thing, is that with every industry that rises, one dies. There are no longer carriage boys, they're gone. They're no longer the elevator operators, they're gone. You no longer have people who do a plethora of jobs. I don't think anyone realistically grows up nowadays thinking they want to be a chimney sweep. So, with advancements in technology, which I am by heart a futurist, there are going to be jobs that are sad to watch die, but do. Now, they'll be kept around for posterity. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Sake. But it's not necessarily a bad thing because a more efficient means will come about it. You don't have people using a telegram anymore. You have people that use high-speed internet Ethernet cables that are laid underneath the sea. Like, I'm sure those telegram operators are really tragically rolling in their graves right now that they're being outdone by 64 gigabyte internet speed. Like, I mean, there's always going to be a more efficient means that comes about it. You don't downgrade. You never downgrade unless it's a technological necessity, which in some cases it is. And for some areas, I'm sure they will keep people manning the lines, especially anything that goes through major cities that requires like an absolute certainty that somebody will be there to stop the train. But by and large, where you can save money, automate, and make it cheaper, you will, because everyone hates HR and they will definitely get rid of as many people as possible. Now, trucking is interesting. The way that the United States is set up, again, we don't have a lot of interconnected rail lines, especially to smaller cities. That's, again, taken by trucking, which is very unique to North America. Europe is tiny in comparison. They don't span an entire continent. And again, different issues with even the ethics that come with being American and individualism and liberty for personal transit and for trucking. It's a culture. It really is a culture for a lot of people. There are entire families and entire generations that go into trucking. So, do I think it'll be sad to see it go? Yes. But will it be dead? I don't think so. I think that by and large, a lot of it will be replaced, but there will always be the necessity for one or two of those types of people to exist in very niche circumstances. I don't think trucks are going to suddenly die overnight. But I think by and large, it will be a societal benefit that they do go.
Just like to respond quickly to that is, just as an observation, I think it's often something we see, we see it occasionally, the consideration of downgrading. I think when you mean downgrading, I don't know if you mean, it's just funny. I don't know. I'm a little tired. Let's see. Yeah, I suppose when it comes to people's jobs, and there's millions of people who, I think it's a very unique case, as you said. It's a very interesting case because there's a unique culture around trucking, and there's people who've been doing it for generations. Um, I do, not to pivot too hard, just that I'd also suggest, or I guess I should say, I'd like to ask, farming specifically. I mean, is farming also being automated? I don't know much about it. I meet a lot of farm workers day to day at my job. I sell boots and clothing to farm workers, for the most part at Timberland. And it's great. The most humble people I've ever met. I speak a lot of Spanish. I am not of Mexican descent or South American descent, but I love the language. Beautiful, beautiful, humble people that I meet every day. Most of them come from places where they speak an indigenous array of languages, in addition to Spanish, and I've been learning those languages. Fascinating, fascinating people. But I would be heartbroken if the people I've met day to day, lose their jobs um, to automation specifically. The place I live in Northern California, Salinas, Watsonville. They're like the what do you call it? The salad bowl of the United States. More fruits and vegetables are grown in this area than in any other area in the United States. And
I do hate to interrupt you real quick. I'm getting a
okay,
phone call, and I can't do both a space and a phone call at the same time. So I will be right back. Mechanization's already happened. A lot of like you don't see farm hands anymore. You don't have serfs on landlords working anymore. You have tractors and whatnot. It's already kind of happened, but I don't think farmers on the whole are going to disappear. I will be back if I can. I apologize for interrupting.
Let's go to Patriot Nelly. She's had her hand up for a little bit, and then it looks like I'm wrapping up my 1 o'clock hour. So,
Yeah.
I'll give you the last word, and then we'll go back to Jason. Thank you so much for letting me to co-host tonight. It's been a blast.
Thank you, Garrison. You're wonderful as always. I'm just curious. I'm very familiar with the East Coast and New York. I'm originally from there, but I'm curious to know how busy the trains are. And, I'm all for automation. However, I'm just, clueless when it comes to what moves on the trains because I have very, very limited information as far as, traveling on the trains aside from the East Coast. So it's just very, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for chiming in. Yeah, I wish I could answer that. I've never ridden a cross country train. I've ridden from like a short subway in major cities or from an airport to a downtown, but I couldn't tell you. Jason, it is about time up, so it's 1 o'clock
Yep.
in the morning here. I'm getting a little sleepy, so I'm gonna
Yeah, no problem.
you.
Let me just say I'm so honored, Garrison, that you co-host with us, and we really appreciate you, my brother. Um, let's say I just want to tell everyone thank you for joining us. We're gonna close in prayer in a second. I've got a couple things to say before we do, but I'm gonna let Katz say her final thoughts, and then I have a couple things I'm going to add to our conversation, and then we're gonna close down. So go ahead, Katz.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate everyone for being here and your participation, and Garrison for always doing such a good job and being our Mr. Congenial, I will say. Good job there. And thank you, Jason, for having the space, for coming up with it, and just being there for everyone and being the kind and gentle person that you are.
Thank you. And I'm always honored that you guys are here. We're just going to keep it going. We're just going to keep doing this. In November, we are doing an election night special space, so I hope you guys can come. Garrison, I think I've negotiated Garrison to be a part of that night. I'll keep working with him. I don't want to like speak for him unless I get for sure's from him, and that is still a little bit ways out. But I'm a planner, so. And we'll have some other people here to give updates throughout the night. But I want you guys to come and party with us on election night and just have fun. And no matter what side you're on, Nikki, I'd love you to be here too, just kind of having fun and poking fun at people and just having fun. So get prepared for that. We are on YouTube. We are on Rumble. We are gonna keep growing. It's slow and steady wins the race. I love the group of people we have here to have fun. So we'll just keep doing that. I've been reading through Psalms 91 the last 3 weeks for our forum. Tonight we went through Psalms 91 5 and 6. If any of you want the scriptures that I've been giving you the last 3 weeks, just request that for me, and I will send you I screen cap the scriptures I'm reading for the weeks, and I'll send you the Psalms 91 that we have so far if you want those. But let's close in prayer. And I just once again want to thank everyone for being here. And I look forward to many more of these forums. I don't plan to stop doing this. I just plan to keep growing and keep, getting people like Garrison and to co-host and Traz and just keep having fun. And that's what we want to do. So, Father God, I just thank you for everybody that's here tonight and that was here in the discussions. It was a great night of discussions, Lord. I thank you that you are protecting our country and you are watching over the circumstances that are around every situation with the train strike and everything. I think you're watching over everyone in this room, in every city that they're in. When Nicky walks out of his apartment and the homeless are right there, I just thank you, you're protecting him, Lord. I just pray you're watching over him. I pray you're watching over Jeannie and Katz and Garrison and everybody in this room, Natalie and John and Patriot Nellie and Batgirl and Thomas and Judith and Lance. I just thank you. You're watching over us, God, and you just keep us safe. And no weapon formed against us shall prosper, as your word says, Lord. And we know our country. We know that our country is founded on you, and that there is good in this country. On both sides, there's good in this country, and that America is still the greatest country on earth to live in. It's the land of the free and the home of the brave. So I just thank you, Lord, that you are protecting us as we sleep, and watching over us, and giving us peaceful, calmness, and not freaking out and worried about anything. We don't have to worry. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. Thank you,
Amen.
everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Amen.
And
Hey, Jason,
yeah,
let's pray for Mamacita. She really needs it.
okay, you want to jump in on that prayer right now?
No, you're so good at it.
Well, what am I praying for? I don't know.
Mamacita's just going through a bad time right now, and I just would, I, I think she needs a prayer.
All right, I just thank you, Lord. That's good, Jeannie. If you got prayer requests, you can always throw them. Thank you, Lord, that you're watching over Mar, and we just pray that you're giving her peace, peace through the circumstances and the things she's going through. We just thank you for that, Lord, that you are protecting her as she goes about her day and everything that she's dealing with. In the mighty name of Jesus, Amen. Jeannie,
Amen.
thank you for bringing that up.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes, and everybody, I look forward to next week. Next week we are supposed to have a special guest. She was supposed to be here, and she should still be here. She's a nurse from Texas, so she'll probably have some stories. And so I look forward to you guys being here for her to be our special guest co-host and talk about some stuff. And so I'd love to see you guys here. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week, everybody. And go Huskies on Saturday against the number 11 ranked team in the nation.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.